the creative director for Cassie. And so when she's asked about Sean John, she says, it's a new tentacle from the master brand of Sean Johns that I was in charge of. And again, everyone's just taking notes. And meanwhile, Combs is still just staring right ahead. His mom walks in late during the direct testimony. He doesn't even notice. Everybody is so absorbed in Capricorn Clark's testimony. Capricorn is shown pictures of a few of the security guards for Combs. And it's interesting because even when she's looking at the pictures on the evidence screen, she looks like these security guards are about to jump up and attack her out of the screen. Like, she looks scared to look at the screen. She's like wincing and kind of glancing at the screen. And she is very descriptive. She likes to put her arms out to describe people's statures. She says D-Rock is a bit more, he's about 6'3", 6'4", more slender, very solid. I would say quarterback, running back type of body. And Paul Offert, that everybody calls Uncle Paulie, he's the head of security for Sean Combs. Can you please describe his general appearance? Quiet, stoic, a bit menacing. Physically, he looks like a linebacker. There's a picture admitted into evidence. And is this picture how Mr. Offert typically looked? No. What's different? He doesn't have his glasses on. His blacked out sunglasses that he wears 100% of the time. Capricorn Clark testifies that on the very first day of the job, working as Combs' personal assistant at like 9 p.m., it's dark outside in New York City, Sean Combs and Uncle Paulie take her to Central Park. Capricorn says Sean Combs tells her, I had no clue that you had anything to do with Suge Knight when I hired you. This is her first day on the job. And he basically says to her, according to her, if anything happens, if you do anything to, I guess, mess Sean Combs up or give information or intel to Suge Knight, quote, he would have to kill me. Mark Agnifilo, during this entire direct testimony, is a whack-a-mole. He's constantly standing up. Objection, Judge. Sustained. Miss Clark, what was Mr. Combs' demeanor when he threatened that if anything happened, he would have to kill you? Calm. How did you perceive his threats? Very serious? Why is that? I felt like there was some gravitas to the fact that he might have had issues with Suge. How did you react when Mr. Combs threatened you? And she starts sobbing, and her voice gets very high-pitched. She's like, I said, we'll just have to see. That's the tone, and it seems very emotional.
Like she can't even hold it back anymore.
Yeah, it's like she's starting to get very emotional.
And this is like still early on, right?
It's like 3 minutes in. During this, Combs is very stoic. He's sitting still, but his head is kind of cocked to the side a tiny bit. Meanwhile, Capricorn Clark is sitting there, and she seems very anxious. She's moving around nonstop. Mark Agnifilo keeps jumping up out of his chair to object to everything, and the prosecutor asks, what do you mean by that? It meant that there was nothing I could do in Central Park to convince him that I was a trustworthy person. And I wrote down in my notes, you know when someone is drunk and emotional? I don't think she's drunk at all. I think she's completely sober. But just to give you an idea of her tone, like when someone gets very drunk, they get emotional and they start talking, it almost becomes like a kid. Do you know what I'm trying to explain? So it's more like, there was nothing I could do to convince him that I was a trustworthy person. It sounds like when you're drunk and you're trying to like explain something as you're crying, as you're emotional, but you're a little drunk. So it sounds kind of like that.
And how does that make like the jurors feel when
there are a few jurors that never seem that intrigued by anyone? Even during Cassie's testimony, I felt like they would rather be anywhere else on this planet. Like they seemed, honestly, I don't want to use the word, but they seemed bored. Like a few of them. I think most of them were very in tune and taking notes, but a few of them, they just look bored every single day that I'm there. During Capricorn's testimony, they're jotting down notes like passionately, every single one of the jurors, because the emotion is so raw. I think Cassie's testimony, a lot of the words she says evokes emotions in people, but when she says it, most of the time, she does not convey a lot of emotions. She's saying it matter of the fact, this is how I felt, this is what happened. Capricorn Clark, you can't not feel her emotions because she feels it so heavily.
So like when Stephanie came home that day, like she was saying this is one of the most like
impactful. Most impactful testimony. I think everybody felt that way because here's the thing that everyone kept saying about Capricorn Clark, and like this is the best way I could phrase it. A lot of people said she's just captivating. My feeling is if you don't already believe her, you want to believe her because of how transparent she feels. She just feels like a mess, like a friend that you're like, oh my god, you're kind of a mess and I want to help you.
Yeah.
So she's like crying. I knew that I didn't have anything to do with any of that stuff that he possibly could have had. Objection, Judge. So Mark Agnifilo is just nonstop objecting to everything. Capricorn explains that she still worked for Combs after the Central Park threats because she felt like, yeah, maybe I could have been more transparent about telling him that I worked for Suge Knight prior to all of this. But there were just other alarming things that happened during the course of her employment. There's this one time, we were at MTV. He was doing MTV Press with 50 Cent, and after the interview wrapped up, myself, Puff, and Chris Lighty, which is 50 Cent's manager at the time, got in the elevator. So 50 Cent is not in the elevator. It's her, Puff, Chris Lighty, which is 50 Cent's manager. What happened in the elevator? Capricorn is explaining that Combs had an issue with 50 Cent. She doesn't dive much deeper into it, but if you watched our previous 4-part series, you know that 50 Cent is amongst a long list of, he's got a lot of career accomplishments, but he is also a professional Diddy hater. He also has recently discovered AI-generated images and how to produce them, so he's just been spamming the feed with AI-generated pictures of him in court wearing free Diddy shirts. Regardless, Capricorn Clark says, Puff told Chris because they were having some sort of issue, like, I don't really like all this back and forth. I don't like that. I like guns. What was Mr. Combs' demeanor when he said that he liked guns? Very serious. During the testimony about 50 Cent, Diddy looks over at Mark Agnifilo, who asks him a question. Diddy purses his lips like a duck and just nods slowly. I don't know what that means. Is he confirming, like, yeah, I did say that? Like, I don't know. Meanwhile, 50 Cent will later take to Instagram to write, cut. Wait a minute, Puffy's got a gun? I can't believe this. I don't feel safe. Frowny face, LOL.
He's responding to this testimony.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it does not get better from here. Capricorn Clark says within a few months of working for Combs, she gets accused of theft. She's had the job for a few months, and she gets accused of stealing very expensive high-end jewelry that was on loan from Jacob the jeweler. So this isn't even Sean Combs' jewelry. A lot of celebrities will get loaned big pieces for events. She says it was a diamond necklace with a cross, diamond bracelet, and a diamond watch. Miss Clark, had you stolen the jewelry? I did not. But it was in her possession at one point. Combs gave it to her for safekeeping because she's the assistant. They're traveling to Miami. She's to keep it safe, and on this before they even get on the plane to go to Miami, she realizes the jewelry is missing. What did you do when you realized that the jewelry was missing? I told the driver to stop the car, and I called security, and I told them to lock everybody in and search them. She tells Combs that the jewelry is missing, and he's telling her, okay, well, I'm going to head to Miami for the event. You go back home to your place with Uncle Paulie, the head of security, with the blackout sunglasses. She goes back to her house in Queens, where Uncle Paulie starts questioning her about the events leading up to the jewelry being missing, and then he starts searching through her entire house. She says, quote, he went through my belongings, he went through my common areas, I had a roommate, and he just searched. He didn't find anything. But he tells her he's going to be back tomorrow. Like, we need to figure this out. The next day, Capricorn says Uncle Paulie comes to pick her up, and he takes her to 1710 Broadway, which at this time was being converted into the new Bad Boy Entertainment headquarters, but she did not know that at this point. She just knew that when she walks in there, the whole place looks like it's under construction and abandoned. They walk in through the glass doors, her and Uncle Paulie. She says that someone she doesn't know comes and locks the front door behind them from outside the building, like you would lock your house from the outside.
That's crazy.
They walk in. She says the building is just, quote, dilapidated. She says post-move out, post-pre-move in, the floors weren't even really done on the levels we were on. The floor wasn't done. There was like old pieces of like, permanent fixtures around that were sort of taken out. It's pretty much a gutted building. They go up to the 6th floor, and it looks similar, dilapidated. Floor isn't done, nothing built yet, some old built-ins, and, quote, there was a 6-foot folding table with some chairs in the middle of the room, and there's another person there. So now it's Uncle Paulie, Capricorn Clark, and this gentleman who's sitting there waiting for them, which Capricorn describes as heavyset gentleman who was chain-smoking cigarettes, and she'll, do hand motions, and drinking black coffee. Can you describe the individual's appearance? Very wide, very heavy, looked like the size of 2 linebackers. He wasn't tall. He didn't stand very much either. So Uncle Paulie is a linebacker. This man is 2 linebackers. When you say size and width, he was very large? Yes. Can you describe this man's size relative to your own? Capricorn looks at the prosecutor, then she turns to the jury, and it looks like she's trying to think in her mind, how do I describe someone's size to a whole group of people? And she just goes for it. 5 of me across, he was very wide. some of the jurors, they're doing like full teeth smiles and giggles because the way she's delivering the information is so, again, she's like looking at the jurors and she's like 5 of me? Like, very wide. Like, very descriptive. It's a pretty goofy moment in light of how serious everything's been and depressing in this courtroom. I mean, just the way that she, like, stands with her arms out, it's a lot. We're not used to that. The only person not amused, naturally, is Sean Combs, who just cocks his head to the right. Nevertheless, Capricorn Clark and Mr. Two Linebackers are left alone. Uncle Polly leaves, and Mr. Two Linebackers, whom she states she never learns his name, he tells her that she has been brought to this building so that she could take a lie detector test to find out what happened to the jewelry. What, if anything, did he say would happen if you did not pass the test? He said if you fail these tests, they're going to throw you in the East River. And she starts sobbing. The minute those words come out of Capricorn Clark's mouth, the jurors are jotting down notes. Combs looks around, like he's looking at like, hello? Why is someone not saying anything? Hello? What's happening? And then finally, Agnifilo stands up. Your Honor, I'm going to object. Move to strike the last answer. Can we approach for a second? During the sidebar, Combs is leaning his elbows on his armrest, using his right hand to touch his chin. He seems very pensive, just sitting there. Meanwhile, Capricorn is up there. She's got these giant aviator eyeglasses. And she'll like lift them up and wipe her tears and then push them back down, and she's like fidgeting with them. And then she'll do this very animated sigh where her shoulders go all the way up. And then she slumps it down, and then she uses the tissue to wipe her nose. I feel like if anybody else had done that, it would come off performative and fake. But I don't know why, when Capricorn Clark does it, you're just like, I don't even know her, but it feels genuine. Like, that's the message and image that I think the jurors are getting.
And you feel for her, like...
I think everyone did. Everyone in the press pews was like, she might be one of the more gripping testimonies. Because of how you can relate to her. She just feels like a normal girl that just got thrown up on the witness stand. Just way in over her head. And she's kind of a wreck. Meanwhile, at the sidebar, Mr. Agnifilo is very stressed. There's no indication that any of this is coming from the defendant. I mean, we don't even know who this man is, which even if it is to be believed, I'm not here to quarrel with that at this point. There's nothing saying that Mr. Combs wanted any of this to happen, so it's unduly prejudicial. So I think for that reason, we object to it and we move to strike it. She's with this unknown man who is giving her a lie detector test, and that connection between that man and Mr. Combs is just non-existent at this point. The judge does not agree. He rules, I don't think that's a fair characterization of the testimony, but I understand your argument. Objection is overruled. After the objection, Prosecutor Steiner goes back to asking Capricorn about what it was like to take this lie detector test in this dilapidated building after being told that she's been thrown in the East River if the results are bad. Capricorn says they strapped her up to some, quote, stuff to your chest and then strap some stuff to your arms, and then they ask you a series of questions over and over and over again. What types of questions were you asked? Did I steal the jewelry? Did I come up with an idea to steal the jewelry? Did I plan with somebody to steal the jewelry? Had I ever stolen from him? Just a lot of stealing-centric questions. From him, was that Mr. Combs? Yes. Did this man tell you the results of the test? They said that they were inconclusive. What, if anything, did the man tell you about the results being inconclusive? It's like, I'm not getting a good reading. You need to calm down. You're going to be in the East River if I can't get a good reading on this. And she kind of sounds, again, like the drunk, panicked voice. And again, I'm not insinuating that she's drunk. She's, like, completely sober. And I think the reason that her testimony resonated a lot with the jurors, at least from the perception that I saw, and, like, even the people in the pews, is that, like, the words she's saying are sad, and you can, like, resonate with the sadness of, like, yes, if I were in that situation, I, too, would be panicked, right? You can resonate on that level. But on a secondary level, she's incredibly likable in a sense of, like, it's not just overwhelming sadness. It's, like, you almost, like, want to give her a hug, because it's, like, oh, my gosh, like, what is happening right now? Like, it just feels very relatable. I don't know how to put it in a way that doesn't sound like I'm minimizing her testimony, because I'm not at all. It's just in the sense of, like, you feel like she's your friend. The way that she communicates feels like she's a friend, and now your friend is telling you some of the worst stuff that's ever happened to her, so you almost resonate on a deeper level.
Oh, there they were.
She feels like she's just telling you, like, exactly what's happened and how it made her feel. There's no intentional, like, let me tell you in a sophisticated manner. Let me tell you in a way where I think you'll understand. She's just like saying as she's feeling it, is what it's perceived as. When he told you to calm down, how had you been reacting in that moment? I couldn't calm down. I wasn't doing a good job at calming down. So she's very passionate. She has a way of sounding incredibly honest, and she sounds just honestly relatable. I hate that word, but I don't know how else to describe it. The whole time she's sniffling, wiping her tears. Mind you, she keeps pushing those giant glasses up. She's lifting them to wipe her tears. Meanwhile, Combs is just stoically looking ahead with very little movement. The jurors are rapidly taking notes, and here's the interesting thing to note. All the jurors' notes are naturally kept in the courthouse. They're collected every single day and given back at the start of each court day. But at the very end, after the verdict, notes are permanently destroyed. So they're writing in their notes. Capricorn is telling them as they're taking their notes that she was there for a full work day that Monday. They're intermittently all day taking the lie detector test, we weren't allowed to leave. The door was locked from the outside. She did not attempt to leave the building because she says, I was there to prove my innocence. At the end of the day, Uncle Polly takes her home and he tells her that they're going to do this all over again the next morning. And they do for the next 5 days. She said she's doing a 9 to 5 getting a lie detector test all week long. Why did you continue to go with Mr. Offord, Uncle Polly, to the building? I wanted to prove my innocence. I didn't like the threats. I felt like it was the only way to prove that I had nothing to do with it. I was in a different headspace. I was just trying to survive it. She says that she never tries to reach out to law enforcement for her 5-day lie detector marathon because she worked under an NDA. She didn't even think about calling the cops. And after those 5 days, Uncle Polly just tells her, yeah, you're gonna go home. Next Monday, she just goes back to work. Sean Combs acts like nothing ever happened. Nobody ever did find the jewelry. It didn't make sense for Capricorn to quit because she's saying, I felt like if I had left, it would have been written off as I had stolen it anyway. And then likely she would never be able to work in the industry. Now, side note, during the entirety of the lie detector testimony, one of Combs' closest friends, who's known him for decades, he's been inside the courtroom every single day, sitting in the friends and family pews. And he's falling asleep. And I really try to focus mainly on jotting down notes on everyone's reactions to things rather than getting absorbed in my own personal reaction. But that was kind of interesting to me because, sir, is that like a normal Tuesday? Like, have we just all gone through lie detector tests? Like, the way that he was, because I'm thinking, if I'm sitting there and there's a woman on the stand spewing lies about my childhood best friend, would I not be like awake and this is crazy? But he was falling asleep. He was like fully in REM. Now, Capricorn is asked, generally, what hours were you required to work as Mr. Combs' personal assistant? Probably start the day at his townhouse at 74th and Park at 9 o'clock in the morning and finish at Daddy's house or wherever we were sometime around 4 a.m. Daddy's house is the studio, not like Daddy's house. She says that she would get no breaks throughout the day for basic needs like eating. On a good night, getting 4 hours of sleep. On a bad night, 2 hours of sleep. And this is probably putting it very lightly. 2 of Sean Combs' other former assistants testified, and this is how David James, he was another former assistant, he describes it. And side note, there is a really weird skit of David James and Diddy that I'm gonna put in the video because maybe it gives you an idea of like his tone of voice and stuff. But it's about Diddy being allergic to bitch-ass disease.
It's David. I'm here to go over your schedule for the day.
How do I know you haven't been infected with the bitch-assness disease? You were supposed to be here an hour ago.
I know, sir, but I got stuck in traffic trying to get here from the studio.
Excuses. First sign of bitch-ass. Did you bring my iPod with you for my run this morning?
I think I forgot it, sir. Let me go get it right now.
David has been infected with the bitch-assness disease.
Which, don't be a challenge, I guess, the statement of the video. David James walks into the courtroom.
Dave James was before Capricorn.
Yeah, days before Capricorn. He seems less prepared in the sense of like, not the answering of the questions, but he walks in and it's like a restaurant. He's kind of waiting for the hostess to guide him to the witness seat is like what it feels like. He's just awkward and scary and it's just uncomfortable. And in court he's asked, generally speaking, Mr. James, what were your responsibilities as a personal assistant for Mr. Combs? How long do we have? He just starts listing everything he needed to do. Make every environment for him comfortable so he could perform his duties. There was a lot of organization of his personal items, traveling around the world with him, basically be at the right-hand side wherever he was. So what you want to do is you have to arrive at his house before he wakes up in the morning. It's important that you set the environment up as soon as he wakes up so he's able to have a successful day. So that would be to compile different documents. One of those documents, we have a folder on the table that would be everything that he needs to approve from a business perspective. If there is a certain artwork for an album he's doing, certain advertisements, he has to approve. There would be a file of business documents, and next to that would be his business schedule for the day that he would have laid out. We'd also have a folder for all the press clippings for any news mentions of Mr. Combs in the last 24 hours. So, like, this man knows everyone in the press pews. Like, you can't tell me he doesn't know everyone in the press pews. He just seems like he's intrigued by the press of him, okay? Which, I'm saying, but more on that later. Continuing on, I would turn on the TV for him to his preferred channel, and I would work with the chef to make sure breakfast was getting started, and then I would knock on the door to get the day going and get his feedback as to if he was ready to wake up, if we needed to make adjustments to his schedule. From there, he would wake up, and we would wait for him to be done with his breakfast. We would call down to security to let them know that Mr. Combs is getting ready to move out for the day, and we would travel around the city, especially New York City. Then it's dinner, which he later notes it's pretty standard for Combs to have a 3-hour dinner. Then it's studio for work on an album, quote, that would take us to about 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and then from there we would either go back to his personal residence or to a destination of his request. And we would get a call time at the end of the night. It was important that I didn't leave his side until I got the call time to know what time to be back tomorrow. I would text the executive team, his security staff, to know what time I'd be back for tomorrow once I got that call time.
At like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.?
Yeah.
Wow.
So generally, what were your hours? I would say my hours would start 30 minutes before he woke up until he gave me that call time at the end of the night, which could be anywhere between, 4 in the morning to 8 in the morning.
Wow.
How many days per week were you on duty? Depending on the personal staff at the time, some days it would be 6 days a week. There were times I worked 3 weeks straight. When we had more executive staff, I would work sometimes 5 days a week. All of that, and David James was paid $70,000 a year. Which, side note, it seems that Mr. Combs is very particular about how he likes everything done. Another former personal assistant that testified, George Kaplan, he says he has to make sure all of Combs' toiletries in his bathroom are facing forward, and the process of making sure all of these little things and adjustments were made before he wakes up would take at least 30 minutes. Now, back to the press part, there was one incident where David James says he was off that day, but still at the Combs residence. I was sitting at the computer in his office. I was working on a research project for Mr. Combs. He wanted to get new tattoos, so I was looking up different options for him. He entered the house at the time. He had been at the club with Miss Ventura, another assistant, and security. As soon as he entered the door, he beelined straight towards me, and he came right over to me, looked over my shoulder, asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm doing a research project for you, sir. He told me that someone was lying on him, and someone did a blog post that somebody hit Cassie, and he looked at my browser history to see what websites I had been visiting that night. So he was following gossip blogs, too.
Diddy was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he comes home and he's like, are you the one that wrote the gossip blog? And he's like checking the browser on David James's history.
Oh.
David is like, I did not. It was jarring. He'd never done anything like that. Now, side note, I did find the old gossip post. I think this is the one that they're referencing, but it reads, according to a reliable source, David pushed it out of Cassie for talking to another guy. He pushed her to the ground and kicked her in the face, and this is not the first time he's hit her. Details to follow. David James says that during his interview, BlahSrah, the senior VP of Human Resources, pointed to a picture, this is before he's even hired, pointed to a picture of Sean Combs on the wall, and she allegedly tells him, this is Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're all here to serve in it. It's very intense. There's a whole multi-step interview process where at the end, David James is asked by Sean Combs why he should be hired, and he tells Mr. Combs, I can't stop, I won't stop. And he said that at that point, Sean Combs was nodding his head like, yeah, I like that. David James also mentions in his direct that he was given a lie detector test after a Cartier bracelet went missing. And he says that Uncle Paulie came, searched his things, did not find anything, and then gave a lie detector test. At this point, Combs passes another note to Tenny Garagos. He rests his arm on the armrest, and then he's like watching for her reaction as she's reading his little post-it in the courtroom. It's weird. Sometimes he does that. He'll like watch the attorneys react to his post-it note. And then I always wonder, because
And does the attorney react or say anything or?
Like they'll give him a nod, and then sometimes like I think he wants them to pass it to the person doing the cross. So then he'll like kind of motion for them to like, hello? It's very interesting, yeah. He's definitely heavily involved. Like, these attorneys are not running their own defense and he's just their client. Like, he's calling a lot of shots. Oftentimes, even during cross-examinations, they'll say, 1 moment, Your Honor, and then the attorney that's doing the cross-examination will go talk to Diddy, come back and say, no further questions. So it's interesting. Now, David says that he took 2 lie detector tests during his time working for Combs. He says, I was invited to what almost looked like a government building. It was kind of a tall skyscraper, and I met with a gentleman who said he was a former FBI lie detector. And at this point, the whole courtroom laughs. Is it funny? No. Are we just like full of tension? Yeah. He's like, lie detector. I guess you could call it, and he was like the most, specialist lie detector agent in America. Who told you that? The gentleman did. The lie detector? Yeah. And again, everyone giggles again. It was very intimidating. I don't know if you've ever taken a lie detector test before, but you basically sit in a chair where they monitor your movements. They put a heartbeat monitor on your chest. I believe they put something on my head and something in my hand. The lie detector tells him, Mr. Combs does not like people who steal. That's like one of his big things. And he basically told me we had to get rid of the rat on the team. He takes the first for the missing Cartier bracelet, the second one for a Jacob & Co. watch. Also, Combs seems super paranoid, if not already evident by the copious amounts of polygraphs he allegedly forced everyone to take. But David James states, every time they're in the car, if Mr. Combs had a Maybach, he would want to have a second car to his right. That way someone couldn't pull up on him, for example, and try to assassinate him or shoot him, which is how Biggie died. So he would always follow him around like security detail.
Who would? A second car?
Yeah.
Like, is he driving the second car?
So Combs would be in the first car, and then the second car would be filled with staff. So David James would probably be in the back of the second car.
Wow.
And Combs was never without security detail. Honestly, this whole thing just sounds like the worst job on the planet. They said the motto at the Combs Enterprise Company was, what rhymes with tired? Fired. All of this, and Capricorn Clark is just getting paid $65,000. She states on the stand, while working for Combs, she developed a medical condition called alopecia. Side note, very odd timing, but right at this moment, Sean Combs takes out his retainer out of his mouth. Like he has a retainer in his mouth and he just fully slobber and all takes it out of his mouth.
Puts it on the table?
He wraps it in a napkin.
Oh.
What is alopecia? It's a stress-induced condition where you get bald patches on your head. Capricorn says that she went to HR at this point to tell her, hey, look, quote, I'm working basically 24/7 and I'm not making enough money. And she sat with me to calculate my overtime. Vashta from HR. The same Vashta done that, okay? And they go to calculate Capricorn's overtime. She comes back with this giant sheet of paper and tells Capricorn, and now Sean Combs, who's sitting there, she said that I was owed $80,000 per 3-month period in my assistant era. How did Mr. Combs respond?
Wait, she's owed?
Yeah, for all the overtime. She's owed $80,000 by Sean Combs.
Oh, okay.
And how did Mr. Combs respond? He ripped up the paper. She was not paid the overtime. Instead, Sean Combs would seemingly make her sit through life lessons where he would sit a bunch of women down that work for him and work with him once in the kitchen of his massive LA mansion. What did Mr. Combs discuss with you at that time? He was discussing with us why we didn't have a man like him. What did he do? He said, let me show you something. What did he do next? He called Cassie over and he asked her to sit down, stand up, turn around. And she's using her hand, she's full into this. Turn the other way. We'll walk over there. Grab that. Hand me that. Walk back. Turn back. Go back to the other room. What did Miss Ventura respond? She did it. She followed each of his instructions. Yes. And after Miss Ventura left the room, what, if anything, did Mr. Combs say? He said, did you see that? He said, you bitches don't do that. That's why you don't have a mix. So anytime she does Sean Combs' voice, she's fully in it. So she's he said, did you see that? He said, you bitches don't do that. That's why you don't have a man. To which we said, you're motherfucking right. And the jurors are giggling. Meanwhile, Tenny Garagos looks over at Mark Agnifilo. She looks disgusted. Her mouth is slightly ajar, shock. I don't think that she's looking disgusted at her client, per se. I think she's trying to I don't think she's trying to convey anything in her reaction. I think her reaction is I can't believe she would make up such a wild lie. Now, do we think it's a wild lie? I mean, I guess that's up to you, but that's what Tenny is showing Mark. The jurors don't see it because they're all smiling. Just the way she said, you're motherfucking right, was a lot. The whole, I think we didn't even know how to respond. Yeah. Eventually, Mark Agnifilo requests a sidebar where Combs turns around and says, I love you to his mom, and she mouths, I love you back. There's just a lot of tongue movements. I don't know how to describe it. And again, I don't know if this is even worthy of including in an episode, but I'm just trying to see like all the things that we've noticed, and like we have, like my researchers and I have all noticed similar things, and we've almost like coined different terms for it. Like, you know how everyone says Mark Zuckerberg is a lizard? I feel like maybe all billionaires are lizards. A few members of the Combs family have very interesting mannerisms with utilizing their tongue. So Sean Combs, he will lick his lips, and when he licks them, he does them so quickly. And he'll like stick his tongue out and do like 3 licks of his lips very rapidly. And we always try to understand when and why he does it, and if it's just his lips are dry or if it's like something else, I don't know. And then Christian Combs does this thing where it seems like when he feels defensive, he kind of sticks his tongue out of his mouth to the side, like.
I see.
But it's always in very specific moments. So I think we're just trying to understand what those moments are. And even when his mother is saying, like, she very dramatically says, picks up his lips very rapidly, and we always try to understand when and why he does it, and if it's just his lips are dry or if it's like something else, I don't know. And then Christian Combs does this thing where it seems like when he feels defensive, he kind of sticks his tongue out of his mouth to the side, like.
I see.
But it's always in very specific moments. So I think we're just trying to understand what those moments are. And then even when his mother is saying, like, she very dramatically says, I love, like her tongue almost touches the tip of her nose when she says love and love.
Wow.
Yeah, and we both wrote it down, and I thought maybe I'm like paying too much attention to random stuff, but my researcher and I were cross-referencing notes, and we're like, oh, that was kind of intense. I don't think it means anything. I mean, it seems like his mom really does love him. He blows kisses. She smooches the air. Meanwhile, Mark Agnifilo is very busy at the sidebar. This is becoming just a wholesale character assassination. I'm not sure what many of these things have to do with the charges. The judge tells the prosecutor to move on with the line of questioning. But I think the effect on the jury is already kind of done. I've never seen the jurors more engaged in Capricorn's testimony. She just has this way about herself. Again, the best way I described it to my husband when I got home after the testimony was, if you don't already believe what she's saying, you want to believe what she's saying. Because she's just so emotionally transparent that you cannot fathom someone could make this up. Like, for example, even listening to her is just fascinating. When she's asked about what Mr. Combs did when he received €100,000 for a club appearance in Europe, she just responds, like, crinkling her eyebrows. She looks at the prosecutor like, what kind of dumb question is that? And she goes, keep it? And they're, like, trying to ask, where did he keep it? But she's like, keep it? I don't know. So it's just very real. Capricorn goes on to detail that Sean Combs likes to throw phones at people when he's upset. He would do that often. That's like his thing. And he was not just violent with Cassie. He was also violent with his staff, including Capricorn Clark. She says there was this one time in his mansion on 2-Star Island in Miami where he sends Capricorn on an errand. Pharrell Williams, who was a music producer, now he's...
Louis Vuitton.
You know who he is, yeah. His manager came over and was dropped off by boat. Because this is an island. Everybody has like a boat driveway on 2-Star Island or on Star Island. And so he's dropped off by boat, but then he has to go to another island where Pharrell Williams is shooting a music video. So Mr. Combs is like, hey, Capricorn. And I say Mr. Combs, sorry, because the prosecutors call him Mr. Combs. Sean Combs is like, hey, Capricorn, go drop him off at the other island. She hops in the boat with him, drops him off, but then she decides to stay on that island for like about an hour hanging out. An hour into it, she gets a phone call from Sean Combs. He's like, where the fuck are you? And again, when she is doing Sean Combs's like quotes, it's very intense. And like all the jurors, they're engaged. What did you do after you got that call? I went back to Star Island. What, if anything, did Mr. Combs tell you when you returned to Star Island? He said, see, your problem is you want a life, and you can't have that here. And then she's just like wiping tears, you know? So the next morning, Capricorn wakes up. She goes to the kitchen to get some breakfast. I was making my plate. The chef was there. She was tired. I asked her where the turkey bacon was, and she said, there is no more fucking turkey bacon. She was very upset from a long night. And I just said, I hate it here. And then the chef walks outside, quote, to where Puff was standing on the back deck and told him what I said. It exacerbated her. He immediately looked at me and he said, you hate it here? And then he charged at me. At this point, she's holding herself in a hug while she's telling this story. When you say he charged at you, can you describe what he physically did to you? He ran towards me with his hands open and, like, pushed me by my shoulders, and she's using her hands to, like, motion. And he started pushing me back. In what direction was he pushing you? Out towards the front
Oh, yeah,
entrance
my
of the
face is
kitchen
in the
through
way.
the butler's pantry.
That's okay, it's whatever.
Approximately how far did he push you? About 25, 30 yards? The jurors are incredibly engaged. Even Sean Combs is taking down notes. And how was he pushing you? Just to make sure the record is reflecting the witness with open hands. Open hands, like, right on my shoulder, like, you know? And she shows again. The top of your shoulders. What, if anything, was Mr. Combs telling you while he was pushing me this way? He said, "You hate it here? Get the fuck out of my house. You hate it here? Get the fuck out of my house." Yeah, and he repeated it until we were outside. Can you describe the amount of force that Mr. Combs was using when he was pushing you? I would say like 75%. I never fell. I kept catching myself. Eventually, Uncle Polly comes to tell her to pack her things, and she does, and then she leaves. But she comes back to work for Mr. Combs again, and this time she says she only came back because her role was not his personal assistant. It was as his global brand director for Sean John. So he told her specifically he's not going to interact with her as much, and that's the only reason she came back. He was very impressed with her new work when she was gone, so at this point she signed with a record label. She was managing Sierra's newest album and R. Kelly's newest album at that point. She says Puff was very impressed with my work and was like, "I'm starting a women's line. You wouldn't have to work directly with me, but you can work for me, and it'll be something right up your alley." And it was paying more than Samba Records was. She also worked closely with Cassie. I was her creative director and manager, and in 2011, she became more close with Cassie. She starts learning that she's dating Kid Cudi, Scott Mescudi, which she kind of admits put her in a tricky situation because she can't tell Combs about the relationship, obviously. But one day in particular, Cassie sends Capricorn a text. And this is where it all started kind of making sense. Remember, I was like, why is Brian still asking Kid Cudi about exercising? She says, quote, "I was picking Cassie up one day. We were going to Runyon Canyon, which is a place in Los Angeles where you hike. And she asked if Kid Cudi could join us." Cassie texted Capricorn, "How did you react when you received that text message?" "Not well. It was a bad idea." I responded, "I don't think we should go to Runyon. There's too many people there. If he comes, we need to go to Fryman Canyon. Delete this text." Combs lizard licks his lips a little and then slightly shakes his head whilst kind of turning to the jurors, like, "You see that? Like, they're all plotting to cheat." Like, it felt very, like, "I've been wronged" type of head shake. "Why did you direct Miss Ventura to delete the text?" "Because that's the second everything got so tricky when she texted me. Mr. Combs paid for my phone. She's texting me on the phone he pays for, on a phone he pays for. It's not a good idea." After what happened, did Miss Ventura change the way that she communicated with Mr. Mescudi? "Yes, I took her to Best Buy to buy a burner phone." So she's saying she's the one that bought the burner phone. "Why did you take her to Best Buy to buy a burner phone?" "The way she was moving, she was going to get us all killed."
Oh.
Mark Agnifilo stands up. "I'm sorry." Sustained. Before he even says objection, sustained. The jury should disregard the witness's last answer. At this point, there's kind of an awkward laugh in the courtroom because it's like we all expected him to jump up with an objection.
Right.
Like, Capricorn really just be saying things. I'm not saying, like, saying things as in they're not true. I'm just saying, like, no filter. Truly saying everything on her mind. Everybody knew that these objections were coming. Now, the day that Capricorn Clark is kidnapped is the same day that Kid Cudi's house is broken into. And it's all connected. So remember, the same day, Scott Mescudi, Kid Cudi, gets a call from Cassie that Combs found out about them and she gave him his address. So he picks her up and they go to the Sunset Marquee. Well, Capricorn at the same time, she hears banging on her apartment door. She wakes up, runs to the peephole, and she sees, quote, a very upset Puff. He was pacing, and she, like, does the motions. He was moving around a little bit. He was just anxious, I could tell, but he was furious. That was evident. Can you describe the movement of his body outside your door? He's pacing, and the body language looked like he had something in his hand. Why do you say that? Can you describe what you observed? Just like the body language. I could see his shoulder. It was like something in his hand. He was moving in his hand. I mean, I couldn't really see the peephole all the way down to his hand, but the body language was giving me, like, he's holding something. The way that Capricorn is acting it out, again, adds a lot to her credibility, in my opinion. It's just very descriptive. Like, you really see everything that's happening. Meanwhile, Sean Combs is sitting in the courtroom, absolutely still. Why did you open the door for Mr. Combs? He was upset. Part of my job is to make sure that the name and likeness is okay, and he's outside my door. I gotta be like, what is this? Can you describe Mr. Combs at the time? His pants were gray, and they were split open from knee to knee through the crotch, so I could see his underwear. Kind of like,
What?
you know, like assless chaps? but it seems not to have been on purpose. So, like, it's cut at the inseam.
It came like this, or someone cut it open?
You
or?
could buy pants like this, but I don't think this was on purpose. I think it ripped, maybe in a fit of anger or something.
Oh, his pants ripped.
Yeah.
Huh.
Did you notice anything in his hand? A gun. And she says it like that. And what did Mr. Combs tell you once he was inside your apartment? He said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." He said, "Who is Scott?" I said, "I don't know any Scott." What did he say? What did Mr. Combs say after that? He said, "Kid Cudi." I said, "Oh, Cassie's friend." Then he just says, according to Capricorn, quote, "Get dressed. We're gonna go kill this." At this point, the jurors and Combs, they're all taking and jotting down notes passionately. And it's just like the way that she's doing his voice and like it was a lot. In the sense of like, I think people are receiving her testimony well. When Mr. Combs directed you to get dressed, how did you respond? "I don't want to go." How did Mr. Combs respond when you said you don't want to go? He says, "I don't give a fuck what you want to do. Go get dressed." I'd never seen anything like this before. He had never come to my house in the entire time I'd known him. I've never seen him with a weapon. I've never seen him making me do something like this. Combs is done taking notes. He puts his pen down on the table, leans back all the way, crosses his legs, and he's about to put his right elbow on his armchair rest and bring it up to his face. This is his like rank 10 business move. This is like full businessman. He likes to sit like he's watching someone present, like an intern present a new business deal, but he stops himself. So then he takes his arm off the armrest and just sits cross-legged. Because I think it's not a good look.
Yeah.
Did you make any attempt to escape your apartment? I did not. Why not? The way he was acting, I just felt like anything could happen. I'm gonna object, Judge. Okay, let's move on, Miss Steiner. Capricorn says she's forced to get dressed. They leave her apartment. So it's Rube, who is Ruben, another security detail. He's actually D-Rock's little brother, but anyway, he's in the driver's seat of the black Escalade. Combs hops in the back with Capricorn, and she's back there, and he now has his gun on his lap as they're driving through the Hollywood Hills to get to Kid Cudi's house. What, if anything, did Mr. Combs and Rube do after he arrived at Kid Cudi's home? They enter the house. Capricorn says that she stayed in the car, but she couldn't leave. Why were you not able to leave? I probably could have left, but I didn't. What were you afraid of if you left? Mark Agnifilo, whack-a-mole, he's back up. Objection to the leading. Sustained. What did you observe Mr. Combs and Rube do on the property? Fidget around trying to gain access, and then they gained access? What, if anything, did you do while Mr. Combs and Rube were on the property out of the car? I called Cassie. Capricorn says that she was just waiting to call Cassie on her burner phone to warn her because she didn't know if Kid Cudi was in the house. She has no clue that he's already with Cassie by this point, and she's freaking out. And what did you tell Cassie when you called her? Cassie, what the And I asked her, like, where she was at. What, if anything, else did you tell her? I told her that Puff came, got me with a gun, and brought me to Kid Cudi's house to kill him. When she says, brought me to Cudi's house to kill him, Combs looks over at Mark, waiting for him to pop up with an objection. Mark looks at him and does a small shake of the head and does not object. Yeah. When you were speaking with Miss Ventura on the phone, did you hear anyone else on the phone? Yes. Who did you hear? I could hear yelling in the background. What did you hear? I heard someone say, "He's in my house!" Like, she literally does it like that. And I said, "Who is that?" She said, "Scott." And I could hear him running out. And I said, "Cassie, stop him. He's gonna come get himself killed." And she was like, "I can't." After they hang up the phone, Combs comes out and wants to see her phone because he saw her hanging up. Capricorn, being smart, had put Cassie's burner phone number as another friend of hers, Stormy, who is also, I think, shares children with Suge Knight, but besides the point. Stormy. But that's not good enough because now Combs is asking to see her phone. He calls back the last number I was speaking to. And what did he say when he called that number back? "What the number is this?" And how, if at all, did Mr. Combs react to Cassie having, or Miss Ventura having, a new number?
Wait, so he called it back and he found out it was Cassie?
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
Capricorn says he's livid, more so than already. What, if anything, happened after Mr. Combs spoke with Miss Ventura on your phone? We heard a very fast-moving engine coming up the hill. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see that it was Cudi. Puff looked at my face. I guess I gave him a visual cue that it was him, and he goes, "There's that right there." What happened next? Cudi pulled up next to the Cadillac Escalade, came to a complete stop, looked, and then took off and sped up the hill. Puff and Rube jumped in the car, and we started chasing him. How long was the chase? It felt like forever, but it couldn't have been longer than a minute. Cudi lost us. We turned south down Laurel Canyon. We heard sirens, and we passed the police. They were headed north on Laurel Canyon. We were headed south on Laurel Canyon. Were the police headed in the direction of Mr. Muscatti's residence? They were. Capricorn says this is when Combs finally starts to calm down. They drive to the Key Club, which is at the bottom of the Hollywood Hills. For people who lived in LA, it was formerly known as One Oak. I think it's the Key Club now. I think that's what she also said, but One Oak was like a big thing, yeah. And they're in the parking lot of One Oak or Key Club. And they don't get out. They're just in the parking lot because she's saying like there's no service in the Hollywood Hills, which also valid. So they come down and they're just using the phone. And it's just Rube, the security, Combs, and Capricorn. And Combs is telling Capricorn to get Cassie on the phone and, quote, he told me to tell Cassie that he has me and he's not going to let me go until I get her. He has me, he won't let me go until I come to you, to which Cassie said, okay, come get me. They get back to Combs' house and Combs tells Capricorn, once you get Cassie, you guys need to go tell Cuddy and convince him not to tell the police that it was me. Did he tell you anything else? He says, if you guys don't convince him of that, I'll kill all you motherfuckers. In the courtroom, Combs visibly starts shaking his head back and forth. Capricorn explains that after they get to his place, she gets into the work car, picks Cassie up from the Sunset Marquee, where Cassie and Capricorn head to Kid Cudi's house and convince him not to tell the police that this was Sean Combs. And then they get back to Sean Combs' residence. Now it's maybe 11 a.m. It's been like this all started at like 6 a.m. What happened after you and Ms. Ventura entered the home? Puff was standing there in a robe in his underwear, and he immediately began kicking Cassie. 100%, full force, in her legs to begin with. She was facing him to start, and he kicked her in her thigh and in her leg. He kept kicking her. He never used his hands. Combs starts taking notes. In the courtroom, the jurors are also taking intense notes. And you said he kept kicking her. Was he kicking her more than once? Yes, he repeatedly kicked her, and she just kept, with each kick, she would crouch into a more of a fetal position, and as Miss Ventura was crouching more and more into a fetal position, can you describe where she was physically located? Outside by now. We were in the courtyard of his home, just like outside the vestibule. Every time he kicked, she moved back, and every time she got kicked, she moved back. And approximately how far did Miss Ventura get moved back from the kicks? Couple steps each time, and in total, all the way to the street, maybe 20 feet. And by the time she reached the street, can you describe what her body looked like? She was all the way on the ground in a full fetal position and crying silently. What was Mr. Combs doing to Miss Ventura in the street when she was on the ground and in a full fetal position? Kicking her? Where? It was her backside. She was on the ground, he was kicking her. Capricorn says she and Rube, the security, were both there and she's freaking out and Rube is calm. And Combs tells Capricorn, he said if I jump in, he was gonna f up too. And she's like sobbing at this point. She says she didn't intervene because I'd never seen him do anything like that, and I was in shock. And in my heart was breaking seeing her get hit like that. And like the way I'm delivering it is not the way she delivered. Like she's full sobbing, like she's a wreck. I'm gonna object, Your Honor. Objection is sustained. The jury should disregard the last sentence of the witness's answer. What, if anything, did Rube do to intervene? Absolutely nothing. Who, if anyone, did you contact after you observed that Rube was not intervening? I called D-Rock. So D-Rock is Rube's older brother, and he was on the security team longer. I said, tell your brother to stop him. What did you explain to D-Rock was happening? That he was kicking the shit out of Cassie? Capricorn reaches for a tissue and starts rubbing both her eyes. Like, she's not rubbing them, like, she's sobbing. Like, you could see. It's, like, just streaming down her face. Did you contact anyone else aside from D-Rock? I did. Uncle Polly. Did you contact anyone? I didn't. Why did you contact anyone aside from D-Rock? I didn't see Rube's phone ringing, meaning like D-Rock is not calling his little brother. What did you inform Mr. Offert? Same thing. I said, Paul, he's kicking the shit out of her, and help her. And she starts like fully choking up. Combs is completely still. What, if anything, did Mr. Combs tell you after you made these calls? He said, matter of fact, you get the out of my house. Did you leave his house? On foot, yes, I walked. She takes off her glasses now, like her face is completely soaked in tears. Who, if anyone else, did you call when you left the property? Regina Ventura, Cassie's mom. What, if anything, did you inform Miss Ventura? I told her mom, I said, he's beating the shit out of your daughter. I'm in over my head. And she starts like really choking up. Please help her. Like it's like a whining sob. Like, please help her. Like, that's the best way I can try to. I can't call the police. And then she does it again, like, but you can. Like, please help her. It was really rough to listen to. I think everyone was having a hard time because I think it was just, I think a lot of the testimony so far in the courtroom, the emotions don't sink in as quickly because even Cassie's testimony, aside from the few times she was very emotional, everything she says is matter of fact. And then, like, you're so busy trying to understand where we are in the timeline. And then it's like once you get home, it soaks in and then you feel a little heavier, right? But in this, it's like all you hear are her sobs, like, echoing in the courtroom. And it's so hard not to, like a lot of people are, like, wincing. After that call, Miss Clark, did you call the police? I did not. Meanwhile, Combs' head is cocked to the left. Why didn't you call the police? The mission of the day was not to get Cuddy to involve the police, so that was certainly counterintuitive. The prosecutor pulls up an email we went over during Cassie's testimony, the one from December 23rd, and the prosecutor asks her to read it out loud. And it sounds like she's being held hostage to read it. She's just constantly wiping her tears. It's the one that Cassie writes to her mom and Capricorn Clark about all the threats, and that this might be released. She says later the arson investigator would reach out to her about Kid Cudi's car, and she just did not want to talk to him either. She said, I just wanted this whole thing to be over, and that was just going to make it worse. She's sobbing out loud. It sounds like she's almost underwater. Following the incident in December of 2011, what, if any, questions did Mr. Combs ask you about Miss Ventura's relationship with Mr. Muscati? He asked the same thing. When did I know about it? Why didn't I tell him? She says that he was very, very angry, and he said, quote, I should kill you and I should cut her face. In the courtroom, Combs slowly closes his eyes and shakes his head no towards the jurors, almost giving like this is absurd. How frequently after this incident in December of 2011 was Mr. Combs making threats to you? Approximately how many times? I'd say once we got to December of 2011 into that summer, I would say 50. She does mention that she told the CEO of Bad Boy, Harv Pierre, about it, to which he just says, that's crazy, but it's going to be okay. Capricorn says he also tells her that she, Capricorn, and Cassie can't really be friends anymore, that they can only interact for work. Now, there are other parts of her testimony that were cross-referenced with other testimonies, and it seems like Cassie was not the only one that was participating in freak-offs. I know that in our four-part series that we did before the trial even started, this was in 2024, there were allegations online and rumors circulating that Kim Porter was also part of the freak-offs. David James, the other assistant, says that he was part of the hotel setups. He called it advancing the hotel. So you go in advance and you make sure it's ready for Combs. He says, in New York City, for example, if he asked me to advance a hotel room, I'd go back to his apartment, I'd get like a Jordan sweatsuit, fresh pair of underwear, some socks, some slides. I'd also bring a toiletry bag, and I would bring the iPod speaker base. And then next to the Trump Hotel, which he loves, there's a Dwayne Reed there, and I'd go get there like a few different food items, applesauce, Jell-O, Fiji water, and then we'd always have some Ciroc vodka and Simply lemonade as well.
I have a bartender full time that just stands here and makes me my favorite drink. You take 1.5 ounces of Ciroc vodka, 3 ounces of lemonade, shake it up, a cool, refreshing drink.
Side note, while David is listing out everything Combs likes, Combs is sitting there like nodding ever so slightly, like, yes, okay, checking off the list. Like if someone is recounting your grocery list to them, that's the vibe. David James just continues, basically everything that he may need. He didn't always use these items, but I was always taught to provide everything just in case he needed something. That way he wouldn't need to call you later on. He also needs his infamous Louis Vuitton med bag and that he always carries, according to David. Also $10,000 in cash, sometimes more. When describing the med bag, David says, there were probably 25 to 30 different pill boxes or pill bottles. Some of them were unmarked, so I was not familiar with what they were. Some were just like Advil, Tylenol. He had water pills to make him lose weight. He had a Viagra in there. He had some pills that helped increase his sperm count, for example. He had ecstasy and Percocets in there as well. Side note about those ecstasy pills, he says there were various kinds, but one in particular that stands out is, quote, it was in the shape of a former president's face. Which former president? President Obama. Yeah.
That's crazy.
The prosecutor asks David, when you set up these hotel rooms, did Mr. Combs stay in these hotel rooms alone or with others? I don't think Mr. Combs ever stays alone. Who did he stay with? His girlfriend at the time, mostly Cassie, but other women as well. There is an odd moment in David James's cross where Mark Agnifilo starts asking him about all of the traveling and all of the advancing of the hotel rooms, and David James goes into a whole catch-up monologue when they traveled to London, to the United Kingdom, ketchup, Heinz 57 ketchup, like they needed that. I don't know if this is what he's saying. I don't know if you guys have ever been to London before, but the ketchup in the UK is not similar to the ketchup in America. He would not be happy. I mean, ketchup was a big item that he always needed for his food. So it's just the consistency to create a consistent environment. So during this ketchup rant, Combs is just like smiling and happily nodding along and everybody's in a lighter mood. But then it goes from ketchup to applesauce. Side note, he eats applesauce on his cheeseburgers. Like, he eats applesauce with a lot of things. Then the conversation goes from ketchup to applesauce to Astroglide and baby oil. And at this point, I think Combs is uncomfortable with the sudden emotional shift because he raises his hands at the mention of baby oil. He rubs them in his lap like he's putting lotion on. But then he, like, realizes it's weird because he's not putting lotion on. So then he puts them in prayer hands. And then he leans his head forward, presses his forehead into his fingers, and then moves on. It was just like a very odd set of movements. It felt like he was instinctively rubbing his hands but thought it would be perceived weird, so he carries out the rest of this awkward set of movements. Starting a business is very scary. One day you're so excited about your big idea, and then the next day you're just Googling how to figure out shipping rates at 2 a.m. while you're also wondering if your website looks terrible. I mean, trust me, I've been there before. My family and I launched a small business selling limited edition artwork at Grandpa Mango's studio, and we were completely unprepared. It felt like the business was running us instead of us running the business. Thankfully, we found Shopify. They are the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow a business online or in person. Create a stunning platform that's made to sell and matches all your business dreams. You can design fast with AI, choose a stylish theme, or build completely custom for full control. One of my favorite parts was Shopify Admin. From back office to front of store, you're always in control with the fully centralized Shopify Admin. My mornings went from waking up super scattered and having all these notifications to having a very clear dashboard that showed me exactly what needs attention. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/rotten. Go to shopify.com/rotten. Shopify.com/rotten. Now, Capricorn Clark also testifies that she advanced many a hotel rooms, but she said mainly it was for Combs and Kim Porter. How frequently would he stay at a hotel with Miss Porter? Once a week. And what, if anything, was your role with respect to hotels when Mr. Combs would travel? To pack and bring and unpack his personal effects? And what did those belongings include? Clothes, toiletry bag, and camera bag? Camera box, actually. Camera box? It was a silver, like at the time it was a silver, like 45 record carrier repurposed, and it had 3 click-in, like 3 point-and-shoot cameras and 1 small mini DV camera. Was there anything else in the camera bag? A small bottle of baby oil and a small bottle of lube. What, if any, lighting was used in the hotel? No lighting. We brought his diptyque candles, that was that. She says on every single hotel trip with Kim Porter, they would have to bring that camera back 100% of the time. What, if any, responsibilities did you have after one of Mr. Combs' hotel stays? To pack up his belongings and sweep the room for anything that might be left behind? What, if any, damage did you observe in the hotel rooms after his stays? Just baby oil. At the Intercontinental, I would see like handprints in oil on the ultra suede walls. Yeah. How frequently did you observe damage from baby oil in the rooms? Frequently, but it was just a lot of baby oil. It was just everywhere. It wasn't necessarily only on the walls. And if he would, which women would he bring to hotels most frequently at the time? Kim Porter, Cassie Ventura. This entire part, when Capricorn is talking about freak-offs of Kim Porter, the kids are not there. Sean Combs' mother is there, and she's just frozen, just listening. Later, Capricorn says she was ultimately fired for not applying properly for vacation time, but she thinks it's probably because she kept mentioning all the threats. And what do you recall, Mr. Combs, in these discussions following your termination? That I would never work again, that he would show me that all these people weren't my friends, that he would make me kill myself? In the courtroom, Combs scratches his left cheek with his left hand, just like scratches his face. This is the interesting part. Later, Capricorn is asked if she reached out to Combs' attorneys, and she says yes, in which a settlement is reached, but this was in her previous termination, wrongful termination. So she quit, got terminated, and rehired so many times, but on one of the occasions, she did get paid. So she's asked by the prosecution, under the terms of the agreement, approximately how much were you paid for? I'm going to object, Judge. Which is so fascinating because, if anything, the defense has been so passionate about women who receive money from Sean Combs. They've been very passionate about the figures and passionate about the demands that were made, and suddenly they do not want Capricorn to release how much she settled for. There's probably a few reasons for it. Probably one, because it was such a low amount that it would probably make the jurors go, wow, that's actually crazy. And two, there was a rumor that Suge Knight was on a podcast and he said the money to pay Capricorn Clark, that settlement money was done by Interscope Records. So that would add to RICO racketeering. Like, it would make it very messy if a settlement for this type of behavior is paid by a company. Now, there's a quick sidebar in which Combs puts his chest in the air, and this is really awkward. So he, stretches his chest up as he's sitting, and then his arms are bent at the elbows like he's doing a bench press, right? It looks like he's just stretching, but he has this very awkward moment where he just, kind of pumps his fist twice, and then he stops. And I think, I think he felt awkward doing it. It just felt weird. Maybe he wanted to do a bigger movement, or maybe he realized this is not a movement he wants the jurors to see. He stops himself. It's just weird. Meanwhile, Capricorn Clark is sitting there super emotional. Sean Combs' sister and the person next to her are giggling, perhaps about something unrelated. I don't know. They're just in the pews giggling during the sidebar. Mark argues during the sidebar. So the objection, I don't know the amount. I don't know that the amount is relevant. And I mean, I would say it's unduly prejudicial. I mean, I don't intend to get into it. I don't know how it advances the relevant issues in this case, what the settlement was for. Again, interesting. But they get back, and the prosecutor makes sure that Capricorn states she has no pending civil litigation against Combs. She has received no other compensation aside from that. But she's also asked, why does she keep going back to work for Sean Combs? I wanted to try and get my life back. She says that she was unable to obtain any other work. She says she did get civil attorneys in 2023 after Cassie filed a lawsuit, and she was upset about it. Did her complaint reference you? Not at all. I was traumatized because it did not reference you. Is that what you're referring to? She did not mention me at all. Did there come a time when you met with Mr. Combs' attorneys in April of 2024? I did. Now, side note, the attorneys that she met with are Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Garagos.
Wow.
And during that meeting, what did you inform Mr. Combs' attorneys? That I wanted my life back. And did you discuss what had occurred during December of 2011? I did. What did you inform his attorneys? I told them that he kidnapped me and I went through the events of the day. Your Honor, I'm going to object this as hearsay, which is actually interesting because they were the ones at the meeting. The prosecutor asks Ms. Clark, were there any discussions about you working in some capacity again for Mr. Combs' companies? There was. And just generally, what was discussed? What would it look like? Like, if I came in as chief of staff, got him up out of there, put him in rehab so that somebody that was around in the inception of a lot of this business deals would be back in place? Did you hear from Mr. Combs' attorneys again? No. The direct is finished soon after, and the judge starts to speak. All right, so this is a good time for us to... Mr. Agnifilo stands up, like he's wound up like a spring. Can I start, and then can we have a break unless we all want to stop now? Whatever you want to do. Well, we're taking a break, which is what I was doing, and then we'll come back. Oh, okay, I'll take a break too. Thank you. Members of the jury, we will take a short break. It's 11:14. We'll come back at 11:40. All rise for the jury. As everyone is leaving the courtroom, Brian Steele starts rubbing Sean Combs' back. During that break, Combs and his mom are just having full mouthing conversations. Everybody is ushered back in. Capricorn is ushered back in at the end of the break. Combs has his right elbow on his armrest, and he's got his fist up in the air, and he kind of hammers it into the air 3 times. It's weird. It's like, wait, thing. I didn't know what that was. That's the feeling. And then the cross-examination begins. Mark Agnifilo takes the stand, and immediately he starts talking about the setup of the conference table when they all met in 2024, because Capricorn met with him and Sean Combs was there. He's drawing the picture. Even Combs is looking at him, mouth slightly agape, just blinking his eyes. And Mark's whole point is how during the meeting in 2024, Capricorn asked Combs to come back to work as his chief of staff, which Capricorn states, yes, she did bring that up. And tell me if this is right. What you said was you've always been able to take care of him. I don't recall saying that. Okay, do you remember saying he wouldn't be in this mess had he kept me around? And then she looks at the jury and said, I probably said something like that, yeah. So I think Mark is again trying to prove a point, but she's just so honest. She's like, yeah, I probably did say something like that. During cross-examination, especially when they're working in his favor, Combs loves looking towards the jurors, so he's doing that a lot. And you said, tell me if this is right. You said you didn't think that Miss Ventura was good for Mr. Combs. Correct. And you believe that? Correct. Okay, do me a favor. Tell the jury in your words why you think that's true. I just felt like they were toxic as a couple. At one point, Mark says he's going to call Sean Combs Puff because that's what Capricorn is comfortable with. And the judge is constantly, like this has happened multiple times, the judge keeps saying, no, we're going to call him Mr. Combs. Okay, Judge, that ends that. We're going to call him Mr. Combs.
Why does he want to call him Puff instead?
I guess it makes him more... And then I think the timeline, a lot of the jurors look like they would be from the era that Sean Combs was Puff or Puffy. Versus I feel like my age, everyone knows him as Diddy.
I see.
And like the older groups know him as Puff, Puffy, and
That's
then...
all. Just make him sound a little bit more relatable
Yeah.
to them.
Now, there's a few other notable moments. Mark Agnifilo wants Capricorn to tell the jury about Capricorn's friendship with this woman named Jeanette, to which Capricorn is very, again, this is why I think her testimony comes off very well received, is even during the cross, she comes off so suggestible. Like, Mark is telling her, tell the jurors, and they say that a lot during the cross-examination. It just means say it out loud, which she will literally turn her body towards the jurors and start explaining her friendship like she's doing the icebreaker at work. So Mark will tell her, so tell the jury about your friendship. She turns to the jurors. I'd moved to New York. I was working in advertising. I was living in the Bronx. Hated the Bronx. My friend Jeanette, I met her through a mutual. My roommate had a girlfriend, and they were friends. And then we kind of got closer. And then the girlfriend, because they were vegans and whatever. So me and Jeanette, we formed a friendship. And she went out a lot. She was like a popular New York City, Lower East Side girl, New Yorker. And she would hang out with different people, but she would often hang out with Mr. Combs and would invite me and then just sort of like start hanging out, us three as like a little friendship group. Even during the cross, it's hard to not like her.
Right, okay.
So
it's likable. It's very, very likable.
It feels like you kind of almost want to protect her. It's like, oh my God, this whole front area of attorneys, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, I mean, these are all sharks in the water.
Yeah.
Like, these are...
They're polished.
Yeah, and you just want to be like, oh, okay, wait, can you stop oversharing? Like, you want to almost protect her in a sense.
Right.
Another time he's telling her, quote, tell the jury that story of how she starts working for Combs. Again, she turns her chair completely. So I was working in advertising, and then September 11 happened. And then I went to a film company called Crossroads. Awesome people. They paid off my student loans. They were great. And then I put my resume on Monster. It was like a new website at the time where you could upload your resume. You know, similar to, I guess, whatever the ones are now. So, like, she's talking to the jurors like best friends. Mark also tries to ask her if Combs was doing drugs when Capricorn met him, meaning, was he using drugs at that time in his life? But Capricorn hears, was he doing ecstasy when you met him? Not when I met him. No, I don't mean at the time. I mean in that time period. Yeah, in that time period. And I'm trying to... Do you remember telling Mr. Combs that you had a crush on him, even going back to when you were friends? No? All right, I'm going to just ask to show the witness defense exhibit 946. This is just for the witness and the parties, and if we can blow it up. Can you read that? Is that big enough for you? Yes, I can see it. And she looks at it, and it looks like Capricorn is looking at a picture of a UFO that landed on the tippy top of the Eiffel Tower. She looks flabbergasted. Even Sean Combs is glasses on, booty scooched to like the edge of his chair, looking at the screen like, where's Waldo? It's a text message thread between Capricorn Clark and Combs, with Capricorn texting Sean Combs, totally unrelated to our current conversation, but did you ever know that I had the biggest crush on you before I started working for you? We hung out all the time. I played it super cool. Jeanette might be the only one that knew. I don't think you knew. I couldn't tell if it was mutual. I just knew for sure that you liked to have me around. We called you Choc, short for chocolate. I was just thinking about them nights before everything. So nice, great memories. 20 years ago, time is wild. Do you have any memory of that at all? I really don't. No? No. So before you worked for him, am I right? You liked him. Forget about crushes for the time being. You liked him. I liked him as a friend. You liked him as a friend, right? Yes, as a friend. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to keep doing that to you. Like, it's so interesting because I feel like in any other witness cross-examination, this might be like an aha moment. But yeah, but it doesn't feel like that at all. Like, even the email reads like Capricorn Clark. Like, she just seems like the type that says a bunch of things when she feels it and then doesn't feel it anymore. Like, she seems like that personality, so it doesn't feel damning even in the slightest.
So, like, whatever Mark is trying to do is not working on
No,
her.
no, not at all. After this slightly embarrassing, perhaps, moment, instead of letting Capricorn put her guard up, Mark Agnifilo is doing the best he can. He's pretty good at crosses, other than his filibustering. It seems like he talks to her about working at Def Jam, and he references, like, back when, like, Run DMC type thing, like, all back that far, or not that far. Not that far. I'm not that old, sir. So, like, everyone giggles, and Mark is giggling, and he says, well, I am. And he's just making her comfortable again. She states, I'm more Foxy Brown, Redman, Method Man, Jay-Z days. Got it, got it. Even during the cross, Capricorn is a likable witness in the sense that nothing feels like a reveal. Nothing feels like an aha moment. Even though there were so many times where it could have been. Even when answering another question, she's like whispering and counting months. She's like, if I started in, I think it was April, so April, May, June, July. Like, she's just so, it feels like such a normal person, just counting out the months. Eventually, Mark Agnifilo leads the conversation back to the missing jewelry, in which he asks if Capricorn knows anyone else in the company that had a lie detector test administered. So we actually do know that David James, remember, he had the lie detector, but Capricorn states Mike B. Who is Mike B? Mike B was his stylist. Now, side note, I did not think that this part was that important, because I'm like, if he testifies later, or if his name comes up more frequently, because like Uncle Polly, D-Rock, Bonds, like these people's names come up nonstop. Gina, like Vashta, Christina Coram, these are all people that are coming up repeatedly. This is like my second time hearing Mike B. Until I see Combs's best friend in the pews. He had his notebook closed on his side with his pen inside, and he was falling asleep. Like, he's fully falling asleep. His eyes are closed. He hears Mike B. He startles awake, grabs his notebook, and starts writing. So then I start writing in my notebook, who is Mike B? Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, just that name.
Yeah.
And he started writing something.
Yeah. I don't know what. Eventually, Mark goes into the actual lie detector test. He's trying to question the credibility of the story because I guess to some people it could sound crazy. He's trying to lean into that, but Capricorn is firm. And you were all hooked up to the lie detector test equipment all day for 5 days? Not all day. He would unhook me to review the test. Okay, and this man, you had no idea who this man was other than the description you gave us. You have no idea who he is? No, I do not. And you were hooked up the whole time? I wasn't hooked up the whole time. I would take the test, he would unhook me, we would review it, we would do it again. Okay, so how many individual lie detector tests did you get? I didn't count, but I kept doing it every day. He starts trying to ask, why didn't you tell HR? Which I thought was kind of a goofy line of questioning. Did you call Vashta and say, I've been locked up in New York, in a New York City building that locks from the outside for 5 days? I didn't, I feel like this is some kind of violation. I did not. Vashta was approachable, right? Futile conversation, but yeah, she was approachable. Okay, and you never called Vashta to say, you should know an employee of this company is being kidnapped, locked in a building in New York City that locks from the outside on the 6th floor, being given lie detector test after lie detector test every day for 5 days straight. You never had that conversation? I did not. And you said that Paul brought you to the 5 times as white as you man, right? Again, trying to poke holes in her story, pointing out things that maybe some jurors would find too crazy to be true. But Capricorn is looking at him like, oh my god, finally someone who gets it. Yes! She's like, yes, he's the one that brought me to the 5 times as white as me, man. So it's like, it's not working in the way that it would work maybe with any other witness. It just doesn't really work. And then Mark goes on to point out that Capricorn was fired multiple times. She just keeps coming back to work for Sean Combs, sometimes even taking a pay cut. Capricorn emotionally states, I worked for him in many roles over a long period of time. I think I was a really good employee for him. And she starts kind of crying. And he would tell you that? He would. Combs is just nodding along, which, I don't know, I feel like a lot of this is getting into slightly culty territory. I'm not alleging that anything is a cult. I'm not getting conspiratorial. But it does feel really icky. Like, I get what the defense is trying to do, but also it just feels like everyone worked really hard for him, gave up their lives for him, and he's just like, yeah, nodding, like, don't forget my toiletries. He just shows no sympathetic emotions. He's just sitting there like, okay, cool. Mark Agnifilo says, and from what you could see, a lot of the people in this orbit worked hard for him, right? I don't think they worked as hard as me, but yes, people were working hard. Separate from all this stuff, I did learn a lot of stuff from Mr. Combs. So remember the judge told Mark Agnifilo to call him Mr. Combs. So she says puff by accident. She like startles herself, looks at the judge, and is panicked and is like, I mean, Mr. Combs. Like, she looks genuinely scared that she said puff instead of Mr. Combs. Like, this is what I mean by saying she feels very genuine on the stand. He has ideas, he knows how to execute, he's tenacious, he wanted to break the glass ceiling as it related to what we were allowed to do as black people in the business world, and it helped when you work so hard to be working with somebody who would match wits with you on the fervor to be successful. And she's sobbing at this point. Mark asks her if she needs a minute. No, I'm fine, sir. Sorry. I mean, this is just very complicated. Combs, again, is just leaned back in his chair looking like a bored businessman. He will frequently glance over at Mark with his mouth slightly agape, just blinking and staring. But I feel like the crazy thing is he looks at the jury to kind of, the feeling that I get is he's looking at them like, you see, they love me. But I feel like if I were on the jury, the feeling I would get is like, wow, you don't even care. Like, this girl that you've known and like worked with for that many years, is this falling apart on the stand? Like, there's nothing in him that showed any sort of like, oh, I didn't know she felt that way. Or like, damn, what a shitty situation that I put her in. Nothing. It's just like, you hear that? She said I was amazing. She said I was breaking a glass ceiling. Did you hear that? Like, that's the feeling. And if I were on the jury, I'd be like, I'm getting the ick. I don't know if it relates to the charges, but I'm getting the ick.
And you were saying, like, even at times you were getting, like, emotional, right?
Yeah,
This is him and her had such a long running relationship, and it doesn't seem like he showed much of emotion.
There's actually one part where a lot of people in the press later commented that they almost started crying. And like, same with me, I almost had to like... Eventually Mark is like, I want to talk about Cassie Ventura for a bit. Okay. Capricorn says that she got along with Cassie really well until they didn't. I would say our issues developed after she started dating him. I would say she got a little more... And she starts kind of moving her head around in 2008, I would say perhaps. And so just so the record reflects, you said she got a little more and then you moved your shoulders. Oh, sorry, yeah. No, it's all right. What were you conveying? What are you telling the jury? She got a little more bravado as being his girlfriend the longer it lasted. When you say she got more bravado, how did that manifest itself to what you could see? Sometimes she thought that I was being paid to help her, just that her expectation level was increasing. She went from more being a sweet model to like a feisty girlfriend. Okay, and did you think she was very talented? Okay, this is the part where literally the next day everyone in the press was like, why is everybody catching strays nonstop in testimonies? I think she had talent, and I think she was a very beautiful girl. Okay, so I asked if she was very talented, and you said she was not very talented as far as you're concerned. True. You said she had talent. Why do you think that she has talent as opposed to being very talented? Talented to me is Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. Very talented is that level of performer, entertainer. Cassie was more of a studio artist, a little more comfortable in the vocal booth to have a little bit of things equalized for you and, engineered properly, less of a live performer. She states that Cassie is a hard worker, but also not a hard worker. And in what ways was she not a hard worker? Oh, well, I would say that most of the time she preferred to be with her boyfriend. But she does mention that Cassie's hard work decreases once Kim Porter has her twins, the Combs twins. After that, you saw that she wasn't working as hard. Not as hard. And it doesn't come off as Capricorn is trying to talk badly about Cassie on the stand. It just seems like she's very unfiltered and just says everything that's on her mind. At another point, she's talking about a hairstyle that she worked on Cassie with, and she describes it like she liked it. She loved the hair. She was like, yeah, let's do it. I said we could cheat it with a weave, but it would be cooler if you dye your hair. And she was like, ooh, I love that. So it was cool. Like, she's just so expressive. Meanwhile, Combs is rustling through his little notes like he's looking for something. And later, Mark Agnifilo asks Capricorn, okay, now at what point do you and she go to Best Buy and get her a burner phone? So remember, because she's the one that recommended Cassie get the burner phone? After we went hiking with Cuddy that day, Capricorn is explaining that she told Cassie she needs a burner phone. And where did you get that idea from? I mean, I know it sounds naive, but where did you get that idea from? Capricorn looks at him like he's growing 3 heads. Like, my parents died when I was 17. I'm from Los Angeles. I don't know how to answer this question. I'm smart. And then everyone's just giggling because it's just two of Capricorn's attorneys. They even look at each other and they smile. Yeah, and they're right in front of us. But Mark is not done. He's never done. This is filibuster Mark Agnifilo. So he's able to sneak in a question telling and asking Capricorn where Sean Combs was in December of 2011. So mind you, all of the Kid Cudi stuff is happening right before Christmas in 2011, but he's like honing in. Do you recall if he was on December 19th, 2011 at an orphanage in Kazakhstan? I just remember he was in Russia. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember he was in Russia or something like that. Okay, do you remember seeing photographs of him on the internet at an orphanage in Kazakhstan in December? And it just felt so random. It felt like he was throwing it in there to be like, hey, by the way, my client is a philanthropist. Hey, my client saves dying puppies. Is anybody listening? Brian Steele's not listening. He's falling asleep. He's over this. Meanwhile, Sean Combs, full smiles. I'm seeing so much teeth. Sean Combs smiles, and then he leans over to Tenny Garagos and mentions something, and it's like super quick. And then Tenny nods. But then after nodding, she leans in towards him, whispers something super quick, and then suddenly his full smile, gone. It was giving like, hey, maybe don't smile when they're talking nicely about you. And it was just like so goofy. Brian Steele, fully asleep. Mark goes on, moving on to the next scene, and he goes on to debate whether or not the day of the alleged kidnapping, Combs pointed the gun at Capricorn or if he was just waving it around. Capricorn states that he was waving it around, but Mark says, according to the government meeting notes, it says that previously she said he was pointing it at her, which the feeling being pointing it around, waving it around. I mean, still kind of a gun, right?
Yeah.
At one point during this very intense line of questioning, we hear a scream from the other side of the gallery. My heart dropped completely because it was like a very intense moment. Even my researcher was like grabbing my arm because she was startled, but it was actually just somebody sneezing on the other side. But it genuinely sounded like full on scream. And there's this brief moment before Mark continues about the night of the alleged kidnapping where he wants to know the location of the car and all the pertinent questions. There's a lot of back and forth. And then Mark establishes that Ruben, Combs, and Capricorn get into the Escalade. They drive to Kid Cudi's house. They park on the side of the street. The car is on a hill. So it's going up the hill when they're parked. Meanwhile, Capricorn is like sneaking a call to Cassie when they leave and they break into Kid Cudi's house. And he's like, you saw them go through this door. This is like the outside door into the courtyard. Yes, sir. Okay, did it seem like anyone had a key? No. Did it seem like they pulled the door hard and it opened? Like, what did you see that allowed them to get through the door? Whatever they were doing, their backs were to me, I don't know, but I was not really engaged in how they were getting in. I was waiting for them to get away from me so I could use the phone. But wouldn't you be watching them to see if they're actually going to be getting away from you? I mean, the key thing here is they don't get through this door, this ends right here, no? Objection? Let me ask a different question. Why wouldn't you be staring right at the door to see if they can get in through the door? Objection, argumentative, rephrase. Were you looking at the door to see if they could get through the door? I was looking at their backs. Okay, as you're looking at their backs, what on the other side of them is this door, right? Yes, but I would say at this point I was kind of sort of not really paying attention. I was so in my head trying to think about the next step, and I was praying that Cudi wasn't inside of there. Okay, so what you're telling us is you haven't the vaguest idea how they got through this door. Is that about right? I don't. She says after they get past the door, they run into the courtyard towards Kid Cudi's actual front door and presumably break into his actual house. She grabs her phone and calls Cassie. Could you tell from your side of the call if Cassie was on the phone with speaker with Scott Muscati present with her when you called? Yes. And they're asking her what she said, which is interesting because Kid Cudi testified he didn't know that Sean Combs had a gun. Capricorn is testifying she specifically told them on the phone call that Combs had a gun, but she didn't know that Kid Cudi was there. She's asked, what exactly did you say about the gun? I said, Puff came to my house with a gun. We came to Cudi's house to kill him. He's in there right now. And then I heard, they're in my house. Okay, so you said it quickly. I said it very quickly. I didn't want him to see me on the phone. My question is, you would want to make it absolutely clear that Combs had a gun, right? It wasn't about being clear. I was furious at her now, and I was like, what the hell? And I'm just letting her know as fast as I can without him knowing I'm on the phone what the hell is going on with me. I'm asking about the gun part. I said, yes, he came to my house with a gun, and he took me to Cudi's house, and we're here to kill him, sir. At this point, Combs starts shaking his head rather intensely, like, no, we're not. To them, did anyone say anything back? A gun? He has a gun? Was there any acknowledgement of the fact that you said gun? No, I heard, he's in my house. And everyone just kind of started giggling because it's like, how many times is she going to have to say that in that voice? Now, when you called Cuddy and Cassie, were you on a three-way call with Lauren London? This is a friend. No. Do you remember telling the government that you were? She was on the phone, but not the whole time. Okay, when did you call Lauren London? Right before I called Cassie. Let's break this down for a second. I want to understand this. You're in front of the house. Combs has a gun, right? Combs and his gun and Rube somehow get through that door and are now in Cuddy's house, right?
Who is Lauren London?
Lauren London was she was Nipsey Hussle's partner for a really long time, and then he passed away, and then there were rumors that Sean Combs and Lauren London dated.
I see. So they're just, okay,
Yes.
got it.
You don't know at that moment whether Cuddy is there or not, right? I don't. So you call Lauren London. She was the only one that was sort of in our orbit as related to me and Cassie, and she was like my sister at the time. I will say this is confirmed by gossip blogs. They're like, everyone thought they were blood sisters. They're not. They're like best friends. And just wanted somebody to know where I was if he was in that house and that he did get killed. I didn't know. I just needed somebody to know where I was in that case. It all went really bad, so I called her for my protection. I just needed somebody to be aware. So tell us exactly what you said to Lauren London. I'm just like, Lauren, I'm at Cuddy's house. Puff brought me up here, and I want to run, but I'm scared of the mountain lions. Scared of the mountain lions? Yeah, it was early. If you're familiar with the Hollywood Hills, there's mountain lions and coyotes. I was just scared. And I just needed to talk to somebody to get my head on straight. It was so early in the morning. Which, interestingly enough, even though Capricorn is, quote, changing her story, with any other witness, like Don Richard, it felt damning because I think of the way that Don Richard did the testimony, the way that she was responding to some of the questions, and judging by the jurors' faces. But nobody seems fazed at all by this.
In what way is her story changing?
I guess she never mentioned
Lauren London.
Yeah, but the defense attorneys are going to say that's a story change. And I'm sure when it's the defense case in chief, the prosecutors are going to do the same thing.
Right. But
Yeah.
the way she explained it, it's like, well, duh, it's,
Yeah, she's like, why wouldn't you call your best friend? I called my best friend. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
Did you wake Lauren London up? I don't remember her status. Okay, how long did you talk to Lauren London? Seconds? Maybe 30 seconds? It was fast. I had to get off the phone because Puff kept popping out into the walkway and in the courtyard. I really don't remember, but I do remember making a call to Lauren, and I do remember making a phone call to Cassie. Are you aware that Lauren London and Combs were friends for years after this? I am. You are, right? They're still friends. I mean, not at the moment, but they were friends until a couple years ago, right? Which I felt like, I get his point that Lauren London is still friends with Combs after her best friend Capricorn is allegedly kidnapped by him by gunpoint. But the last part, I mean, they're not friends now, definitely also doesn't help the defendant. I just find it interesting. It's just very hard to destroy Capricorn's credibility. Even when geographically, sometimes Capricorn's story does not make sense. She says after calling Cassie, she hears Kid Cudi coming to the house. Soon enough, she sees him pull up in the Porsche, and what happens next? He stops next to us, next to the Escalade. Puff and Rib look at him, see if he's going to get out of the car or what's going to happen, and then he speeds off and they jump in the car and we chase him. Up the hill, up the hill. And are you aware of the fact that when you go up the hill, the only way to get back down to the main roads is to come exactly the way you came? That's not true. Mark and the defense team pull up a map of where Kid Cudi's house is, and he is explaining more so to the jury that Capricorn said that this is where they went, but all of this leads to a dead end. That doesn't make sense. And then he's confirming with the map, but they all seem to be dead ends. Do you see that, Capricorn, Miss Clark? I mean, I would imagine that this is a big aha moment, but Capricorn is firm, but they're not. To the point where Mark Agnifilo is so taken aback, he says, do you know something we don't know? I mean, you can ask somebody that's a technical person, but Skyline, if you go from Hollywood Hills Road to Skyline, you can get yourself back on Mulholland, and then you can get yourself back to Laurel Canyon, and then you can go towards Beverly Hills on Mulholland, or go back down Laurel Canyon. She says this with so much confidence that I had to go home and research whether or not Mark Agnifilo used older maps to try and confuse Capricorn. I'm looking up if maybe the maps of the Hollywood Hills are not as accurate. It's not. It seems like it's quite the accurate map. However, this is how convincing Capricorn is in her story. I feel like maybe there's some sort of misunderstanding. Maybe like she meant they went a different way. Because if you go the different way, you do see Skyline, you do see Laurel Canyon. And then she said she was going south on Laurel Canyon when the police were going up Laurel Canyon. So I'm like, I feel like this, but that's crazy because that's how she came. Yes, she came across. Like, not convincing in the sense of like, we don't think she's telling the truth, but in the sense of like, she's so firm with her answers. She's been so transparent, But the whole time, Combs is just shaking his head in disagreement, like, I can't believe how crazy this story is. Which, honestly, there have been a lot more of these, like, I'm so confused. However, everybody is giggling to release some tension in the courtroom, so I guess we will all giggle. And a lot of those moments come from previous employees of Combs, like Capricorn, but also David James. David James, another former personal assistant, he talks about the time that he took ecstasy. He says, it was a New Year's Eve party and Mr. Combs gave me the night off, but he invited me to the house to the party and to celebrate New Year's Eve. So I went to Mr. Combs' bag and I took a pill of ecstasy that night. So he's doing this without Sean Combs' knowledge. And then he is asked, what happened after you took the ecstasy? I was feeling pretty good. Can you describe the feeling of taking ecstasy? I would say it's ecstatic. So I was also drinking Ciroc that night. So I was drinking and on ecstasy. Normally I'm very straight edge, don't normally have too much emotion, but this night I was like dancing, said I was diddy bopping all over the party. And the gallery starts giggling, a few of the jurors are sharing glances. What happened after you started diddy bopping, as you describe it? I was just vibing. And even Combs is smiling, but he explains that afterwards, after diddy bopping, he gets called into Combs' office where Combs tells him, yo, Playboy, is that you dancing around the party? And I said, yeah, that was me dancing around the party. He said, you were on ecstasy that night. And I said, yes, sir, I was. And he kind of nodded his head and said, okay, well, I'm going to keep this footage in case I ever need it.
What footage?
Of him diddy bopping to embarrass him. Later in the cross, Mark Agnifilo is asking David James about his title, and he's like, but your title was personal assistant, just so I know what to call you. And David is like, call me David. Other times, David James is asked by Mark Agnifilo, the same one that's doing Capricorn's cross, that whenever Combs ran into fans at McDonald's, let's say, Mark says, in your opinion, did he intend to be gracious around these sort of things? I don't think gracious is a word I would use to describe Mr. Combs. Okay. But he keeps doubling down. Did he ever sign autographs for fans? He did not. Actually, sometimes I would sign autographs, or his executive staff would sign autographs. He would send those out if we got fan mail, for example. He did not sign many autographs. He also tries to make David James feel good, saying things like, long days were never a problem for David James, though, because he never gets tired. To which David James responds, that's not true. One day I was actually driving home from the studio in LA, and I was actually driving the car this night, and I blew through a red light, and Mr. Combs got very upset with me, and he was like, what are you doing, man? We can't be blowing red lights. We'll be pulled over by the cops. I just turned around, and I said, I'm tired, man, like I'm exhausted. So then Mark is like, okay, let's move on. And the whole time, Sean Combs is sitting there, and he's kind of making these very specific expressions, which he does for all of his personal assistants when they share stories like this, which is, I've never heard this story before. Like, he is, in my opinion, trying to appear very confused. Like, where is this story coming from? There's another part where David James admits during the cross-examination that one of the security staff members, Roger Bonds, had picked up 2 women that were sex workers. And he says, I wasn't familiar at the time that they were prostitutes. That's how he words it. Tell us what happened. Roger Bonds and I went out to eat. We went out to have drinks one night. We were off. We went to the hotel lobby. We met 2 women, and we brought these 2 women back to Mr. Combs' residence. Combs was not there at the time. He was at a hotel. Did you ask anyone if you could bring these women back to the house? I mean, Roger Bonds, it was his idea to do it. Okay, Roger Bonds made you do it. It was often that security detail would actually invite women over to the house without Mr. Combs' knowledge. And it turns out that these weren't just women. They were what? Well, after we had intercourse, they asked me for $200. I was very surprised. I was like, what do you mean? And I called Bonds, and I said, why is this woman asking me for money? I had no idea she was, a person to ask for money after that. And I was against paying her, so I told Bonds, I don't want to pay her for this. I don't understand. Why? He said, you better pay her because we don't want any problems here at the house, so pay her. And you paid her? I did, and then she wanted to take a shower, so I asked her to pay me $200 to take a shower. How did that turn out? I got my money back. You got your money back. Congratulations. And everyone in the courtroom is giggling because we don't really know what else to do. Even Sean Combs is glancing around to check, like, am I allowed to giggle? And he, glances around, and then he gets a little chuckles in. I will say, though, to offset these lighter moments, there is this odd feeling that whenever a former personal assistant talks about Sean Combs, and I say this so that you understand the vibe, a lot of them sound like they were in a cult. They will get so emotional talking about the trauma of working for Combs. They will be so firm in their insistence on seeing violence between amongst themselves or with Cassie and others, like whether they are receiving the violence or whether Sean Combs is putting that violence on Cassie. But the second they're asked to talk about Sean Combs as a boss, it gets strange. George Kaplan is another assistant who was subpoenaed by the government to testify, and I feel like most of his testimony helped the defense. He does state that some parts of his job were hard. It was my first week on the job. He asked me to go to Whole Foods and get a BPA gallon water bottle, and they didn't have it, like a BPA-free gallon water bottle. And I didn't want to be coming back late, so I got 2 half-gallon water bottles to make up the whole gallon, and that was insufficient. How did Mr. Combs respond when you brought him 2 half-gallon water bottles instead of 1 gallon water bottle? He was angry. He told me that I did not bring him what he asked for. Meanwhile, when he talks to Mark, the entire cross is just making Sean Combs looks good. He says everything that Mr. Combs did and does, diversity is a very important part of it, especially for the African American people. When you work with him, Mr. Combs, part of the job, no matter if you're close to him or not, he has an extremely infectious vibration. I mean, you are around him and you feel his excitement, you feel what he feels, and he's very adept at projecting that. I have never worked harder in my life. Mark Agnifilo asks George Kaplan, you've never worked harder in your life. And they always say, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to, but here I go. Looking back at it, was that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't answer that question. It's proven to be one of the most complicated pieces in my life.
Is he the one that had a
immunity? Yes.
Immunity before he started talking,
yes.
Right?
Although nothing he said was particularly crazy. There was some drug conversation of purchasing drugs. He says it was sad when he would get yelled at by Sean Combs because, quote, I'm a young man and this is a God among men talking to me.
Wow.
But he also says he didn't just push me to my deepest depth, he introduced me to depths that I did not know that I had. It helped me not only professionally, but that piece helped me grow up as a man. He also mentions that the entire company gets paid time off on Biggie's birthday because it's a holiday. He says that he still reaches out to Sean Combs for his birthdays, and he says, I invited him to my wedding. I did not hear back. And again, it's like that moment of like, wow, these people are talking about how they gave up everything for Sean Combs. And he can't even message you back. And I told him that I had a baby. And yet you still sit here today on the witness stand of his trial and you have respect for him. Yeah, I'd say that it's a complicated relationship at this point. I think I have lots of complicated relationships in my life, and I think this perhaps falls in that bucket.
So it sounds like, Sean Combs is this like very high status person, and it's not like Sean Combs like necessarily kind to them or very nice to them. Like he pushes them to their maximum, but still he's this very influential person that, did a number on their it's not because Sean is like nice to them in any way, right?
I don't think so.
Correct? Is that the feeling from him?
Yeah.
Like he never say that Sean was like cares about him or anything like that.
But I think this is the feeling that most people would have working for someone like Sean Combs. I think it's just a natural human thing. When you work for someone that is at such a high level and they might be so cutthroat, you almost rationalize it in your head as this is what it takes to be great. And then once they do compliment you or they say one nice thing about you, you feel so
validated.
Because it's like, it's not a random person saying this to you. This is one of the more powerful people in the industry. This is, it's like it feels really real. I wonder if this is just a normal thing that happens.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to come here today. I desperately did not want to come here today. Because you have nothing against Sean Combs, right? Correct. Now, same with Capricorn. During her cross, she's shown an email between her and the head of HR where she's just like wiping tears and she's talking about how she got fired. And even though she had so much trauma from her job, she's so sad about getting fired. Now, after her termination, she does get hired by Chris Lighty to be 50 Cent's day-to-day manager. But right before her first...
she worked for 50 Cent?
No, because right before her very first day at work, Chris Lighty ends up passing away. So I think
Chris Lighty works for 50 Cent.
Yes, and Chris Lighty hired her. But then Chris Lighty passed away. I think it's probably a whole new team that takes over the management of 50.
So she didn't get the job.
No. Then another email is brought into evidence, then a text thread between Capricorn and Combs, and it reads with Capricorn asking, are you okay? Is your mom okay? Hope all is well, XX. Sean responds, yes, we're great, how are you? Hopefully you'll forgive me soon. It's been long enough. I feel like you forgave everyone but me. Anyways, be well, XX. She's like sobbing while Mark Agnifilo is reading this out loud. Then another email chain from Capricorn to Sean Combs, where she writes to him, "Hope you're well. Your grace period to be mad at me has long exceeded the agreed upon time, man. LOL." Mark has her read out the second paragraph, and she's just crying nonstop. "My hope for this year is for you to make good on your promise to get other things and actually be my friend again. Hopefully retrospect has taught you that I just minded my own business and grown people did what they wanted to. She was clearly never my real friend because she didn't clarify that to you. So many of your other so-called friends knew things too, and you still with them. She just must have wanted me in particular gone." So she's talking about Cassie, she's talking about the Kid Cudi, and she's talking about how there are other people in Combs' life that have done worse, and he's still friends with them. And she's upset. So much so that Mark is telling her, take your time. Take a second if you need. Take as much time as you need. Sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. And she's explaining, I told you this is just so complicated for me. I felt that I was somewhat of a protector for Puff, and if you could get me away from him, he wouldn't have someone looking after his back that actually was looking out for him. So that email is me pleading, like, dude, just let it go. And she starts sobbing. She apologizes again for being emotional. That's all right. That's okay. Take all the time you need. There's no rush. And yeah, it's just sad. Diddy's just nodding. He has no reaction in the courtroom. And the judge is very sweet with Capricorn. He tells her, "Miss Clark, is it okay if we go on?" "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, please." Even Mark Agnifilo chimes in, "You're okay." Capricorn looks at the judge. "I apologize for my language today." The judge looks at her. "Do not apologize." "Mr. Agnifilo, when you're ready." "You ended up coming back and working with him again, right?" "Yes." "From your perspective, he heard you." I don't think that was the case. I think that he did what Cassie wanted, and Cassie wanted me back." "All right, can I ask you a question? Did that hurt that he would only take you back because that's what Cassie wanted?" "Yes, absolutely." And she starts breaking down again. "This is my whole life, and there's shenanigans. I have no parents. My son has autism. He's nonverbal, and my stakes are higher, sir." This is the part where I said a lot of people were tearing up. I think it's like, because with everyone, you just keep hearing, if you were so scared for your life, why did you keep going back? Which I think is already like not the best question to ask anyone. But I think with her, it's the way she says it puts it so much in perspective. Like sometimes not everybody has hundreds of millions of dollars and choices. So yeah, and you just feel. Okay, so you reached out to him consistently, right? And I'm sorry, through the year 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, you wanted him to forgive you, am I right? "I wanted my life back, sir." And your life, when you say I want my life back, you wanted to work with him again. "I wanted to work with the music industry and use my core competency." During the redirect, Capricorn mentions that part of her settlement agreement was that Combs would give her a positive recommendation to get a job, which he doesn't even do that. "How long were you looking for work?" "I was looking for work until I pretty much got pregnant." "In what year was that?" 2015. "Were you able to obtain work?" "No." "Why not?" "I was blacklisted." "Did you return to work for Mr. Combs?" "I did." "Why did you do that?" "I wanted to take the opportunity so that other people could see that I was a valuable person and that I wasn't disposable." "Why did you need Mr. Combs' approval for that?" "At this level of business, he held all the power as it related to me." During the recross, Mark Agnifilo focuses mainly on Cassie with asking, "Do you remember saying at our meeting in 2024 that Cassie said to you that if you told Cassie you should move away from him and date other people, right?" "Yes." "And she said to you that Jay-Z was taken, who would she date?" "True. She said that. She did. Nothing else. Thanks, Judge." And that is the end of Capricorn's entire testimony. It's very interesting because prior to this, I felt like I was living in two worlds. So I would go into the courtroom, and I know that the jurors are not supposed to be making faces or like nodding their heads, but you can kind of get vibes. And I felt like even throughout Cassie's testimony, there was a disconnect and what felt like a very big difference between the energy inside the courtroom versus the online sentiment of her testimony. I felt like a lot of the jurors some of them looked to me not perceiving Cassie's testimony well.
And you're kind of like frustrated a lot of time when you come home. You're like, man, why is it not
Yeah, because it's like when you actually take a second to think about it, and maybe the jurors go home and they take a second to think about it. When you think about it, there's so many reasons why certain things unfolded the way they did. But when you see some of the jurors' reactions, it's like it always felt like a lot of the case was not working really for the government. And then this is when things started going the opposite way. Like Capricorn Clark's testimony, I think it's really hard for jurors to A, not believe her, or B, not resonate with her. I think even if you have doubts about some parts of her story, I feel like it's so hard to not resonate with her emotions. I just didn't see a single person smirking or like looking like this is so, I don't believe you. Like it didn't look like that at all. So this was a very noticeable shift. I think, you even see it online. I think with Cassie's testimony, maybe it's more complicated and everybody walks in with a bias already established. And people want to victim blame, people want to do these things. But with Capricorn, it's like, it seemed a little more clean cut. And her emotions felt so real. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. And we will be back to more regular episodes because we just had a lot to figure out. And we figured it out. But be safe. And I will see you in the next one.
2 hours?
I think the digital footprint associated with the Sean Combs case is massive. But also, while it's ongoing, there's new little tidbits, little nuggets that are being added to this massive collection of data on a daily basis. The Combs sons walk into the courtroom, and side note, I just thought this was kind of goofy, but Christian King Combs had an Instagram story, and it's him in the van with his brothers listening to music while they're headed to court. And which is already kind of a crazy thing, but that's okay. In the corner of this Instagram story, however, are the words, one word, early, and a bird emoji. Early bird. Okay? I don't know if he's trying to say early bird gets the worm. I don't know what he's early for because he was very late to court. They're pretty late to court almost every single day. So I don't know what the early bird is.
Wait, so they show up like in the middle?
Yeah, sometimes the witness is already testifying and they'll show up. So I'm not entirely sure what the bird was for, but nevertheless, nobody in the courtroom is thinking about that because there have just been too many crazy things. This feels like the least of everybody's worries. Another morning more recently, another disturbance takes place inside the courtroom. And I feel like I was telling you guys, a lot of strange things have been happening in the courthouse. And this is just another one of them, okay? So every single day, Diddy has 4 U.S. Marshals that sit around him watching his every single move. Before he even gets into the courtroom, the Marshal that we've nicknamed Messi, because he is truly like the spitting image of Messi, the soccer player, he goes in and he sweeps his hand all through Diddy's chair. It's like one of those wooden, leather cushioned chairs with armrests, nothing special, but he will lift it up, scope it out under it. He'll touch all the legs. He'll push on the cushion. He'll swipe the cushion with his hands on all sides. If he's looking for hidden contraband, weapons, anything abnormal, and they never find anything, of course. But they've also never really put their hands on Diddy until that day. Sure, the marshals, they might give him like a fist bump or two, depending on the mood that Diddy's in. Sometimes Diddy will even hand Messi a post-it note, and a few nods will be exchanged. I think he's probably asking for the bathroom or something. Diddy is escorted in on this particular day. The judge then comes out and sits on the bench. Everybody instinctively stands. Judge Arun, Father Arun, humble, he says, please be seated. I don't think he likes when people stand for him. I think it's a thing that you have to do, and I think he's accepted it's part of the process, but he preferably doesn't like it.
With his energy.
He's always like, please be seated. Unless you'd like to stand. Yeah, I think it's just very formal, and he just wants to get straight into business. So he's already into it. Let's start with GX10C 114. It's 8:30. Usually it's about 30 minutes before the jurors are escorted in. So the prosecutors and the defense, this is when they argue. This is like when the lawyer Olympics come out, and they're arguing their case, they're pleading their case, and the judge is like, I'm sick of every single person in this room. When all of a sudden, as they're discussing all of this, you just hear screaming. It's not fair, Diddy! They're making fun of you in every courtroom! A woman is standing up and yelling from the last pew of the public section, and everyone in the courtroom, the prosecutors, the defense, all the clerks in the bullpen, they rubberneck. They're like 180 degrees. They whip their neck around to the back of the gallery where the yelling is coming from. Everyone except Diddy's marshals. they're just trying to block him. I don't think they're necessarily protecting him because Messi does have his hand on Diddy's shoulder. As in, like, don't try to get up. Don't try to do anything. Like, no swift movements. At this point, there are now 3 courtroom officers in uniform with badges, with bulletproof vests. All of them are retired NYPD, so the court officers, they wear, like, the bulletproof vests and everything. Officer Liz, yes.
Oh, is Officer Liz?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So the marshals, on the contrary, they're always in suits.
Oh.
They're in, like, fitted suits, and they're pretty in shape, okay? Not that the court officers are not, but, like, they have different attire. And I think the vests are a lot more intense, for sure.
Yeah.
They're next to this woman, and when she first stood up and started yelling, I think Officer Liz, his main thing is, everybody's here for a reason, and he tries to keep it as peaceful as possible. So I think that they could have been more forceful with her, but they're trying to de-escalate the situation with the least amount of resistance that is already being caused. With this woman, she is now upgraded to profanity. She has planted her feet in the aisle, and her body weight is leaning back away from the 3 officers who are trying to now grab at her because now she's escalating it. They were trying to be polite. They were trying to be like, okay, let's get out of the courtroom. Even a few journalists who were sitting close to her got up and moved because it's starting to feel a little dangerous, like a little stressful, especially because she starts screaming, take out your gun, take out your gun.
Wait, so she went straight from, where did she say beginning?
She said they're making fun of you, this is unfair. Yeah.
And she goes straight to take out your gun?
Yeah. The marshal has a hand on Diddy's shoulder just to make sure nothing happens. She's yelling this at the uniformed officers that are now like, okay, we should probably escalate. Judge Arun, who has never once addressed the gallery. Like, never. Okay, so defense attorneys, sometimes they'll walk in, they'll scan over the pews, see who's all here. Sometimes they'll even make small talk, like, they'll open the bathroom door for you, and they're kind. The prosecutors, same thing. Judge Arun, like, we don't exist to him at all. Anyone that's not the attorney, the defendants, or the jurors, or the witnesses, we do not exist. I mean, he'll talk to the court staff, he'll talk to the court officers and the U.S. Marshals, but everybody else, the public, the press, Diddy's friends and family, we don't exist. There has never even been a look over the pews, there has been nothing. This is the very first time. He looks into the gallery, past everybody. Please escort her out of this courtroom now. And his voice is clear, it is firm, there is no panic, there's nothing. He's like actually staring daggers at the gallery. He's like staring at this woman. Like, you guys need to get this woman out of my courtroom. So the officers escort her out, and then Judge Arun instantly goes back to business.
That's it? She walked out?
She walked out, she did a few interviews outside. It appears that in the interview she's saying that it's unfair that they're smearing a black man's legacy and that they're doing this, and she's saying he's perfection, Diddy is perfection. This is a black man's legacy that people are laughing at.
Diddy, everyone laughs in every courtroom in here. Now, I don't think it's funny for people to laugh at a black man legacy being destroyed. Black American legacy figures, father figures, extraordinary excellency, black excellence. Sean John Combs is inspirational. He is perfection walking.
It appears that she was perhaps in the overflow rooms for the whole trial. This is the first time we've seen her in the actual courtroom, but I have seen her since like the first day. I'm sure in the overflow rooms they're making more comments. Because the overflow rooms, it's a TV, it's a screen, there's no judge. They have court officers in there, but it's not disruptive. If you talk in there, the jurors don't hear it. It's not as intense in terms of court rules. So I have heard from other members of the press, like sometimes they prefer the overflow rooms because if they can't hear something, they can literally, hey, did you get what they just said? Whereas in the main courtroom, you cannot speak. So I've heard some of that. So maybe she's heard people giggling in the overflow rooms. Maybe they have been making comments about the defendant. I'm not entirely sure, but she's saying that they're making fun of you. They're smearing a black man's legacy. Now, these have now gone viral on TikTok, these little interviews, and people are commenting, it's not about race. Some people are saying, oh, okay, so he's perfection, but like, what about SA? What about domestic violence? Side note, there is a sketch about her. The sketch artist, like, instantly as this is happening, you just hear like frantic, you know how I tell you when you get really excited, it's like, shh, you just hear the noise of the sketch? Yeah, they sketched her. Now, I will say, when she was in the main courtroom, she had a scarf around her head, not for religious reasons, but because she's actually not allowed in the courtroom, apparently, transit system in New York. Another reporter starts talking to her and asking her questions about, like, what are you doing here? Because you're not part of the press, so, like, what made you want to spend your day in the courthouse listening to this specific case? And it's jury selection. Like, we're not even in opening statements. Like, what's the reason? Like, you must have a very strong reason. Do you know anyone that's involved in the case? And she was explaining that she also had very tough life experiences and she can relate to some of the people in this case. And she's hinting at the fact that she has maybe perhaps lived through domestic violence. And so I actually thought it was this moment of, oh wow, this is a very interesting moment where people are coming out, not even because they know the people or the victims involved or the witnesses involved, they support people who have gone through similar things. Because yes, he's innocent until proven guilty, however the domestic violence is on video. It's pretty hard to say anything, right? I thought she was here to support the victims and take a stance against domestic violence. And then I didn't see her around. I mean, I kind of saw her here and there, but like the feeling was the very first day I heard her share her story, like it was that feeling consistently. And then as the weeks go by, recently, a few days ago, she was causing a bit of a ruckus outside on the line. So when we got separated into public and press, all I heard was something about YouTubers and Gene Deal. Because there's a lot of content creators in the public side, and so she's mainly interacting with them, and I think she was like getting into a fight with a content creator. I'm not entirely sure. I tried to stay out of it. I literally went, oh, and then I looked away because I'm like, okay, I need to stay in my own lane.
You said there's always something going
on. There's always a fight. There's always a fight, and it's
multiple fights going on at the same time.
Yeah, I will say, like, to the people in the public line that are standing in that line just so that they can get the good coverage, so that they can get in the courtroom without any problems, I have so much respect for them because that public line, I saw a comment that's like, it's like the Fortnite lobby. It feels like that. I mean, the main line feels like that, but then once they split it up into public and press, it's like usually a lot of commotion in the public line, and so people who are going through the public line just to be able to sit in on this trial, I don't know how they're doing it. It's so intense. There's always a fight. I don't know what happened. Because the first few times I've seen her, she seemed so pleasant, and then all of a sudden, it's just very different. I'm just very confused. And so all the press and the public, they want to know, does Diddy know her? Because there have been rumors swirling around that perhaps Diddy is, I mean, these are some darker rumors, that perhaps Diddy is trying to buy witnesses, buy jurors, maybe even buy Diddy supporters to infiltrate not only the public, but also maybe the press. So there's been all these rumors swirling around. I don't know what he would get out of this incident, though.
Yeah, so you don't know if Diddy was involved.
If I had to take, like, my most cynical, because, I mean, I do enjoy being conspiratorial at times, but, like, if I had to be the most reasonable, I don't think that he played any role in this. But I do think this trial is bringing out a lot of interesting people. And I'm just so confused. The only thing that confuses me and a few other members of the press is her attitude shift throughout the weeks is so drastic. We're just confused by it. What are your thoughts? To thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support Achievement Centers for Children. They're a non-profit organization helping children and adults with disabilities. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team of dedicated researchers and translators, and to even bring our team out to New York City for months to be able to do this. So we would really like to thank you guys for all of that support. Few disclaimers before we get started. There are mentions of physical assault as well as essay. Many of the quotes and statements included have been shortened and condensed for brevity. To cover ourselves legally, you guys know the drill. Sean Combs is presumed innocent until proven guilty, and that has yet to occur at the time of this episode's release. So the burden of proof lies within the government. Any descriptions or observations regarding Mr. Combs' legal team, the court, and or the public during the trial were personally noted by myself or my other two researchers who are present in the main courtroom. They should not be used as a definitive source to determine guilt or innocence. So with that being said, let's get started. I think Michael B. Jordan just wants one day without reading about him being mentioned in Sean Combs' criminal trial. I think that would literally make Michael B. Jordan's entire week. Cassie's best friend and former stylist, he takes to the stand, and he is asked about Michael B. Jordan by Diddy's attorney, Xavier Donaldson. Because remember, while Cassie was in South Africa shooting a movie, she starts talking to Michael B. Jordan, and because of that, his name has come up so many times during the entirety of this trial, and it's still ongoing. Donaldson asks Cassie's best friend, Cassie was in South Africa, right? Correct. What was she doing in South Africa? Shooting a movie? And she was shooting this movie as she was still signed to Bad Boy, correct? Correct. And what was the movie? Honey? And so as an artist signed with Bad Boy, she was not only doing music, but she was also getting movie deals, correct? She was able to do that sometimes. And it just seems like a very roundabout conversation. So, I mean, I guess, right? I'm asking yes or no. Was she able to do movies while she was an artist signed with Bad Boy? Sometimes, yes. In 2015, this was one of those times that she was allowed to do a movie, correct? Correct. And in order for her to be allowed to do that movie, Mr. Combs, as the owner of Bad Boy, had to sign off on that, correct? Correct. So to button that, Mr. Combs signed off on a contract to allow Cassie to do a movie, correct? Correct. Mr. Donaldson? The witness is saying, Mr. Donaldson? Asking a question. Donaldson is now responding. Yes, sir. Can you just drive it home? Because yes, I did hook her up with Michael B. Jordan. I know where this is going. But no. And it feels like the two of them just start bickering in front of the witness. He's like, no. While the entire courtroom is watching and wondering what the hell is happening right now. So Mr. Nash, you hooked her up with Michael B. Jordan, right? Indeed. He's fine. She's fine. I mean, why not? Some of the jurors start smirking, others are turning to each other and they're mouthing, ooh, like they're literally doing that with their mouth. Even Brian Steele is sitting there giggling with this goofy Boy Scout grin, as they say. That's how they describe his smile. The only person not amused in the entirety of this is Sean Combs, because he is not having a good day. First of all, Cassie's best friend is very likable on the stand. He's won the jurors over. Everybody's giggling nonstop in the courtroom during his testimony. He is just laying it down. He's not getting bullied by the defense. Yeah, Deontay Nash. And on top of that, Sean Combs' move for a mistrial was just denied prior to all of this. Alexandra Shapiro is a very interesting attorney on Sean Combs' defense team. She was a clerk for Justice Ginsburg, similar to Judge Newman, but not at the same time. Like I've mentioned, I don't think their paths have ever crossed. She's a prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office in SDNY, the same district that they're in right now, fighting for Sean Combs. She's worked in the criminal division for 5 years. Then she went on to join an international law firm to work on white-collar crime. She low-key loves defending an alleged insider trader. And I say that with fear coursing through my bones because these are very serious people who would probably eat me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So the reason that she's on Sean Combs' team, though, is very interesting. She's actually known for her work in appeals. That's her main focus. She's even said in an interview, I usually get retained after somebody else lost the trial, but I do sometimes get involved at the trial level as well. She basically states it is critical if a client has the resources, aka just money, if they have the money to have someone with appellate experience during the trial. She states, quote, one of the most frustrating things for me as an appellate lawyer is to find that something important wasn't preserved during the trial. It's totally understandable because trial lawyers are in the heat of the battle and focused on contesting the government's account of the facts, which means her being added to the defense team, being present during the entirety of the trial, she's probably there just to focus on procedural compliance and the application of the law as a whole. I don't even think she's there for the fact-finding of the actual case or jury persuasion, like the other trial attorneys. I mean, that might change as the trial ramps up, but I highly doubt it. It seems like she is here to make sure that the trial is running to the letter of the law. And if it's not running to the letter of the law in a way that benefits their client, then they need to swiftly take care of it. Of course, all in favor for Sean Combs. She's not the judge. It's not like she's there just for the pure idea of making sure each trial is just and fair, legally speaking. She's there to make sure absolutely everything is in legal compliance so that if there is a verdict that is perhaps unfavorable, it is likely that she will start on the appeal, if not already, because who knows. So usually attorneys that focus on appeals, they really only enter the conversation after the verdict. But when you have that much money, hundreds of millions of dollars at your disposal, I mean, why not get a cross-examination.
He was recently retained.
Yes, and he recently did a cross-examination of Dr. Hughes, which is she's a forensic psychologist, and I will say nothing that notable came out of the actual testimony itself. The defense kept trying to get the whole testimony thrown out. The judge did not go for that. However, the cross-examination by Alexander Shapiro's husband was very intense. He was kind of aggressive. Well, kind of is nice. He's very aggressive. Very aggressive.
It's like over-aggressive for what?
Yeah, it's kind of, like, I think it's similar to when Teddy Garagos does a lot of the crosses on law enforcement. I think we get why there's aggression, and we get why the defense, not the defendant, the defense team might be frustrated because as attorneys they have to protect their clients, and they're thinking, this is overkill, you did too much on this is not maybe to the way that we've seen it before. I can get that there's passion that can come off as aggressive, but to someone sitting in the courtroom, it just feels like, why are we mad at people for just doing their jobs? Like, they don't even know your client like that. It's not personal. Why are you getting so angry? It just feels like, are we just angry at the world right now? Like, it's maybe not the best thing to show the jurors, is my opinion. Now, Alexander Shapiro has not done a cross, and she always looks incredibly stressed. Like, she looks more overworked than anybody else on that team. If I have to guess, and I thought about this all the time, because I have had a few bathroom run-ins with her, where we're just like standing next to each other, washing our hands in the sink, and it's very uncomfortable. But, I mean, I'm sure she's obviously a very, very talented person, and very scary in a good way. She knows what she's doing, but she seems incredibly stressed all the time. She's not a small talker, and so the feeling that we get is that she seems like she specializes in appeals. She has great attention to detail. Most attorneys that specialize in appeals do. I feel like she's the type that likes everything perfect. She likes her T's crossed, her I's dotted, and now there's so many hands in the pie. She just seems very wrapped up. I'm setting the scene because we kind of have a boys club with Brian Steele, Xavier Donaldson, Diddy, and sometimes Filibuster, Mark Agnicola will join the boys club, and then the other attorneys just do their own thing, and she just sits at that same table like, can we just please get each other? Like, that's her mind. Can you guys not be giggle gagging right now when there is very serious problems that we have to address? That's her energy.
See, I do find this very interesting when you throw like 7, 8 top lawyers together on a case. That dynamic must be crazy.
Yeah, so Mark and Teddy are the leads. They seem the most stressed out because they're overseeing probably all the other attorneys, okay? Yeah. Teddy is probably a little more stressed, perhaps from her pregnancy, and also perhaps because she's the one handling most of the evidence, it seems. So lots of back-end stuff. Mark seems more like front end. I have no clue. I don't know if this is true. Alexander Shapiro, she seems very stressed. Brian Steele, Xavier Donaldson, Nicole Westmoreland, and Anna Estevao, they do this thing where if they are doing a cross-examination that day, it's like the most stressful I've ever seen them. And then the next day when they're not doing any cross-examinations, they're giggle gag wig. Brian Steele's falling asleep. Brian Steele will watch another defense attorney on his team make a mistake, and he'll just be like, why'd you do that? I wouldn't have done that if I were you. Because I guess when you're the leads, you're in charge. Whereas they have their very specific roles, and I'm sure they work really hard at their very specific roles. But it's very interesting. But Alexander Shapiro, perhaps she's overseeing the whole thing. She seems very stressed. Now, regardless, she stands up, reaches for the microphone. The jurors are out of the room.
When was this?
This was like a
midday.
Oh, okay. Jurors are out of the room. She's in front of the gallery. The gallery, we're all sitting there. And she states, Your Honor, respectfully, we are going to move for a mistrial at this time, based on the prosecutorial misconduct that went into this. A mistrial, which means forget everything that just happened, and let's do it all over again from the beginning, with new jurors, new jury selection, new everything.
This is like weeks into it, right?
Yeah, this is weeks in and probably millions of taxpayer dollars in. Which is great for the defense, because that means that to a degree, the defense knew what they were getting into before the trial. Like, they kind of have an idea based off the charges, based off of things in discovery, like where the prosecutors are going to lead it. But now they have a really good idea of, like, the valuable evidence the prosecutors have, the key points, the key witnesses that they're bringing in. But now, they can spend a lot of time to exploit all the flaws in any of their evidence and any of their arguments for the retrial. I mean, this is their dream. Like, what in the hell would even cause them to try and move for a mistrial, though? You can't just say it because it's not going well for you. Like, you can't just be like, you know what, Judge, I just kind of maybe want to start over. Like, can we do a do-over? Yeah, let me take it from the top again. Like, you can't do that. Something has to happen. And it is because of one of the most unexpected witnesses that takes the stand. Could you provide the court your first and last name and spell your first and last name? Lance Jimenez, Lancejinenez. Good morning. And who is your employer? The City of Los Angeles Fire Department. Lance Jimenez is an arson investigator for the LAFD, and he describes his job as, and this is literally what the mistrial is based off of. We're basically detectives for the fire department. We work hand in hand with LAPD to work on the crime of arson, which is intentionally setting felony crimes. He's been doing this for the past 14 years. He's investigated well over 1,000 cases, probably 1,200 cases, maybe more. So what is an arson investigator from Los Angeles doing all the way in New York City, sitting next to Judge Arun, and might be the testimony that leads to a mistrial in this case? Like, it's so random. Kid Cudi. Investigator Lance was the one that was called out to the scene when Kid Cudi's porch was set on fire. He was the lead arson investigator, which again, what does this have anything to do with the attorneys asking for a mistrial? I'm going to give you the exact line of questioning, and you see if you can spot the reason why the defense demands a retrial. Prosecutor Slavic asks Investigator Jimenez, did you collect any other fingerprints in this case? There was, the victim had informed me that he had somebody come and print his house from a previous trespass, and that person recovered 2 fingerprints on his glass front door, and that person put those on print cards and turned them over to me. So to give you context, remember how Kid Cudi's house was broken into, allegedly, by Sean Combs, and Ruth, the security guard, Black Capricorn Clark, is crying in the car outside? Well, it appears that Kid Cudi might have hired a third party to come out and take fingerprints from his front door just for safety reasons, because honestly, I would too. Well, Kid Cudi gives those fingerprint cards over to Officer Jimenez, because he was like, yeah, that was a month ago that my house was broken into, and now my car has been set on fire. Here are the prints. Do with that what you will.
Did you find out?
The prosecutor asks, what did you do after obtaining these print cards? The print cards were sealed in an envelope with the person's signature, and then I put them in another envelope I sealed for evidence and turned them into LAPD for print analysis. What do you mean by putting them into evidence? We take all of our evidence we collect and we turn it over. We book everything with LAPD's evidence unit, and they store and collect all the evidence, and it's properly maintained through LAPD. Did you receive results related to these fingerprint cards? I did not. Now, you said that you entered these fingerprint cards into evidence. Did there come a time when you learned what happened to the fingerprint cards? Yes, recently. What happened to the print cards? The 2 print cards I turned in were destroyed. When were they destroyed? They were destroyed August of 2012. So this would be 8 months after the fire. Were you aware that they had been destroyed in August of 2012? I was not. Did you authorize the print cards being destroyed? I did not. Who ordered their destruction? Somebody within LAPD. Is that typically the way that logged evidence is destroyed? Not for evidence that I turn in. I'm the lead investigator, so everything goes through me before it's destroyed. Unless it goes through our arson section, it will come through in the request if they want it destroyed or not, or returned back to the owner. And the LAPD employee who authorized the destruction wasn't you said, right? No. Was that person a member of your team? No. Did this strike you as unusual? Mark Agnicolo, Combs' lead counsel, stands up. I'm going to object to all of this, Judge. The judge is like, there was a question pending. I take it as an objection to that question. Yes, that's sustained. And the prosecutor says, I'll ask a different question, Your Honor. Investigator Jimenez, in your 15 years, approximately, as an arson investigator, has evidence been ordered destroyed by someone who is not destruction of these print cards. There's no further reason for these questions other than that. Prosecutor Slavic argues this is with respect to his investigation, and this material was in 3500, which are the documents that the government turns over to the defense. Like, she's like, you knew about this. It goes to the conclusion of the investigation. I think the defense is going to get up on the cross-examination and suggest that it was a dead-end investigation. There were no charges, and there are reasons why. And this destruction of the print cards is one such reason. Mark is saying they could have left it at that. That's clearly not what they're doing. What they're clearly doing is saying, in addition, they could have just said, where are the print cards? They're destroyed. They didn't have to go further and say, have you ever heard of this before? Did you authorize it? That is clearly improper, and that's what they're doing. They are putting this in front of the jury that there was wrongdoing in the LAPD, and the only reason that would be relevant, since this is not an LAPD internal investigation, is that someone in this courtroom had something to do with it, and that someone is Mr. Combs.
And Mark said that?
Yes.
You
like, the phrasing is crazy. Yes, but he's saying, like, that's what they're saying.
I know, but still.
Yeah, but, like, yeah. Now, the judge disagrees. Hold on. Again, that's not how I would have taken it. I understood the questions as they were coming in, as drawing the sting from the potential cross-examination that would show the destruction of the fingerprint cards as reason to question the entirety of the investigation of the arson incident. And I assume that's what Ms. Slavic was doing, was trying to anticipate that you're going to go up and say, what are you talking about? You lost evidence that would show, possibly point to someone else having done this, and just mysteriously the print cards vanished before the trial. But the defense counsel doubles down, saying, why would they ask the last question, though? There's no legitimate reason consistent with their explanation. They did this not for that reason. They did this to suggest something improper happened, and it's not just an LAPD matter, because they wouldn't have asked all the other questions in 15 years, making it suspicious. In other words, the defense states the government is making inferences that Sean Combs somehow got rid of the fingerprint evidence because he knows those are his prints. Mark Agnifilo says this has caused prejudice. He says, and I have to just say it the way I think I see it. I think what the government has done is outrageous. And I haven't used that word all trial. Which I'm like, okay, I feel like he's got an outrageous limit that he uses per trial or something, because that's such an odd. I haven't used that word all trial, but I'm using it now. And they know what they're doing, exactly what they were doing. They were suggesting to this jury that someone in this courtroom had something to do with the improper and suspicious destruction of these fingerprint cards, and that's outrageous. And quite frankly, we are having discussions, and I need a few more minutes before we hit ground on what, if any, other remedies we are going to ask for in light of that line of questioning. So before I do that, I'm going to speak with my colleagues for a second, and I will, if it's okay with the court. I know we're trying to get the jury back in the box. If I could have a few minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just to discuss with my colleagues.
Stop it. Yeah, I'm done. I'm tired.